What's up? What's up, everybody? Dear Jonhson here. Some know me as Rattletrap 1776. So just thought I'd come live today and gonna do kind of like a little back to the basics midway through back to the basics, because so many people are kind of lost right now. So it's Sunday as usual. It's July 20th, 2025. I'm going to try to refrain from any four-letter words as I walk through my journey of life, trying to make my faith stronger. I'm trying not to say any four-letter words. I'll try to refrain from saying the words stupid, dumb, and ignorant as if it feels like it's directed towards someone, but probably won't be able to refrain from those in general. So, a lot of people that need to get to know me, a lot of new people on my page, which is cool. Welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're a part of 1776 Nation, Rattletrap 1776 Nation, Dear Jonhson Country. Glad you're here. But a lot of people need to know my origin. Army veteran, retired, all right. And so a lot of people don't know, but I'm officially licensed to the state of Oklahoma broadcasting, so I am at official capacity. I've gone through all the background checks, Department of Defense, etc. All right, so I have a DOD ID number, but I also have a state of Oklahoma broadcasting badge number. So a lot of people out there probably need to know that, and it will be more and more known in the future of who that is and what entity. But right now it's not important. It's irrelevant. All right. So there is a reason why I'm here. Also, I went globally viral August 24th, 2022, ranting. All right. It was a rant. I was saying the word stupid and dumb and yelling. So you probably want to know my origin before you say, oh, this guy's cocky, he's an ass, and all these other things. You probably want to know my personality. All right, somebody's got to be a leader. Somebody has to know what's going on. That's why every veteran out there, you took an oath. You took an oath to the United States Constitution, but you also took an oath to this country, the people of this country, your family, your friends, etc. You took an oath. All right, you're to uphold that oath. That oath never expires. Every single veteran, you could be working at a capacity right now for this nation. At any level, you could be called back voluntarily or involuntarily. All right, but if you're, even if it's not in a quote-unquote official capacity, you still are at an official capacity because you took an oath that no one else took. We're in that tiny percentile, that 6th percentile now, 6% now of this nation are veterans. Now, out of that 6%, there's not many who knows what's going on right now. If you don't know the laws and orders currently invoked, it don't matter if you're a colonel, it don't matter if you're a captain, it don't matter if you're a sergeant major, it don't matter if you're a lawyer, constitutional lawyer, whatever title you have, if you don't know the current laws and orders right now currently invoked, doesn't matter. You can look just as atrocious as everybody else. So what do you have to do? If you want to know what's going on currently, you got to do what? Read, study, comprehend. So it's kind of a back to the basics. 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. There were all these unique laws and orders put into place. Now the laws were predominantly there. So this is where people get confused. You have the Constitution, which is the highest law in the land, but it's a broad governance of what Congress is supposed to do, what the president's supposed to do, what the judicial branch is supposed to do. So your legislative branch, your executive branch, your judicial branch, the three branches of government that 68% of America can't even name. Just simply name them. Just say, hey, what are the three branches of government? Legislative, executive, judicial. 68% of America, on average, give or take, cannot do that if you walked up to them on the street. But they want an opinion, and they'll bash and they'll trash people like me, the president, whomever. Make that make sense. All right? So the three branches of government. The laws are under the Constitution. So you'll have laws and all these different formulas out there, kind of like January the 6th. All right, the electoral count of 1887. All right, that was something that was legislated. Here's how we're going to count the electoral college votes. A group of people voted on that. That's your current electoral. You'll have the statute of 1845. That's when, where, and how we vote. All right, it took them that long, but they had to do what? Trial by error, see how they were going to get off. Back before there was telephones, before there was text messages, before there was internet, before that, they had some trial by error, how they're going to get each state to do what? Report the votes back to what? The federal. To see who the governors were. Things of that nature. So statute of 1845. It took them that long, from 1789 when the Constitution was enacted, March the 4th, 1789, to 1845. So we have all these laws under the Constitution. Then you have orders, executive orders, but you have other kind of orders as well. You have those under the law. The orders, especially the executive order, is exactly what it sounds. Executive, presidential order to what? Enforce. So what's kind of, it's not humorous, but it's humorous in one way, but it's serious in another. All these years, there's been laws and orders. Most definitely. You'll hear people out there say, well, we've always had laws and orders, son. Oh, we've always had laws and orders. That's correct. But the swamp did what? They created their own little checks and balance system. And they kept people at bay because of what? People, we the people, forgot what they're supposed to know. So the we the people down here are all focused on marrying, making babies, and living everyday life and all this other stuff. And everything grew and grew and grew till these people are having to do work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, right? Each, some of them each. And everybody started becoming what? All geared towards material things. Oh, if you don't have a 2-bedroom house and 2-car garage, you ain't this, that, no. People got hooked on material things. And then those materials kept growing and growing because of an incompetent Congress who each year was a new Congress. Sometimes new leaders, sometimes retired, died, whatnot, new one stepped in. But you never had all 535 members of Congress doing what? Working as unity. For whom? The people. Because the people forgot what you're supposed to know. So how can people hold them accountable when the people don't even know what the hell's going on? It really is that simple. So all these people out there's a lot of people bickering right now, fussing, whining, griping, moaning, complaining, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, when you don't even have a solution or a foundation you're standing on. Now, you don't have to like the law. You don't have to like the orders. You don't have to like President Trump. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like things. But this is what we're working with, laws and orders. And for the first time in U.S. history, all these laws, all these orders that were implemented in 2017 to 2021, everything right now is stemming from that, all those orders. And for the first time in U.S. history, all these things are being enforced to the whole. That's why the liberals don't like it, but why the Republicans look like liberals right now. There are not many of them. President Trump's putting the numbers out there, but there's a few who have jumped ship over Epstein. So if you put a win column and a loss column, and let's just hypothetically, I hate it, but let's just say that Epstein's a loss for President Trump. It's not going to be, but right now, at this moment, at 4:30 p.m. on July 20th, let's just say for a moment that that's a loss. So you're willing to call that one loss for President Trump your one win that makes you jump ship with President Trump when you look at his win column of all the things that's been done from 2017 to present day? Are you willing to forfeit that one little thing for all these things? If you do, you're selfish and you're pathetic and you might need deported. That's how atrocious anybody looked this past week for jumping ship and saying all these things about President Trump. Oh, he's splitting his base up and he's this. He ain't done anything. He's splitting your brain and he's splitting your little selfish, whatever you call your little pity party. He's splitting that up for you. Because what you did is what I know you did. You got bold. You supported President Trump in your little friend base and your little group base out there. And when something didn't happen on your time and your timeline, you did what? You jumped ship. But if you knew the overall laws and orders, if you knew everything that was invoked, if you understood and respected the military, not just, oh, my cousin served in the military, my daddy served, and how dare you say it? No, that don't mean you respect the military as a whole. You can't have military without military laws, military orders, military regulations. And if you knew all the laws and orders in place right now, you would read and study and comprehend what's going on. You wouldn't be remotely close to no Debbie Downer or no negative Nancy. You would be on fire, and you'd be look like that, like you want to bust through a brick wall, because everything that's taking place is already calculated, it's pre-planned, and the laws show that. You could escape the matrix out there. A lot of this stuff taking place are distractions, but also pieces to get people involved. But the people who don't have a clue what's going on, it's to get their attention, to get them what? Participant. Get them commenting. Not you if you claim to be awake, and if you claim to be a patriot, and you claim to be on that side. You shouldn't be responding like that whatsoever. You should be excited. So 2017 to 2021, if you knew what you're supposed to know as a we the people, that most iconic slogan in our history, if you knew what you're supposed to know, you would know what took place from 2017 to 2021. Legislatively. Unique laws and orders. Unique to this operation. Unique. And it doesn't matter what some general says. Generals are in a whole different category. You won't find my ranks or any of my ranks in the order of precedence of a president. You'll find a 4-star general, you'll find a 3-star general, you'll find a 2-star general, and you'll find a 1-star general. You won't even find the colonels in there. All right? So generals are in a whole different category. And for the people out there in the early on who try to pin me and General Flynn against each other, you clearly show that you don't know what the heck's going on simply off of an order of precedence. And a general can't comment right now. Especially as long as law shows we're in a continuity government, that means we're in a military occupation. That means what I'm about to break down in this video again. But back to the basics. If you knew what you're supposed to know as an American citizen, as an American, if you knew what you're supposed to know, you wouldn't look the way you look. And I can always tell, especially on my pages, when people have been reading, studying, and seeking to comprehend. The questions are very different. When you're struggling, even when you're struggling, the questions look different versus a question that looks like a little jab or a comment. 2021 to 2025 was a resetting of the executive branch. 2025, the present day, is the resetting of the judicial branch. And what you're about to witness with the United States Supreme Court and all the dockets that are filed right there, right now, I just got off, right before I came on here, I just got off of X. And the liberals are laughing, saying, oh, the Supreme Court set the precedent that they can't touch a president, that a president has immunity. Not when it comes to fraud, not when it comes to treason, but not when it comes to murder. All right? And if you wonder why I got blocked just a week and a half ago on True Social, briefly, if you want to know, it was an optic for you. Because I already put out, I've been talking about Supreme Docket Case 23-939. I've been talking about it. But I went deeper in it and posted about it. And it's about murder. And guess who's linked to it? Obama and Osama bin Laden. All right? No, the military ain't scoffing that under the rug. And what you're witnessing with the changing, it's a fundamental reset is the correct terminology. A fundamental reset of the legislative branch, 2017 to 2021. It was a fundamental reset of the executive branch from 2021 to 2025. And now you're watching a fundamental reset of the judicial branch. And what the Supreme Court and what the courts are going to be ruling on over the next course of time is going to fundamentally reset the judicial branch. It's also going to fundamentally reset how people are punished, meaning the visuals of that. All right, if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you in the future. So every American who loves this nation, but also loves laws and orders and rules and principles, standards, etiquettes, procedures, which we have to have, you should know all this. This is what you're about to witness. is a fundamental reset, not change, but a fundamental reset back to our history. All right, the old Bible, so you know the Bible says an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. All right, if they think that all this is just going to be scoffed under the rug, these liberals, that's why Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you don't want to look like a liberal. And in order not to look like a liberal, you don't want to be falling for clickbait either. All this clickbait stuff don't get you anywhere either. You need to know the laws, the orders, military regulations. You need to know as much about military as you can when it comes to laws and orders and regulations as well. It may not be your cup of tea, but it'll strengthen you and sharpen you to be able to identify, and it'll give you a skill set that you can recognize when people are lying to you, or they're just fakes, or they're frauds, or whatever it may be. Social media is not going away. AI is not going away. All right, so all these things are not going away. Therefore, you have to sharpen your skills even more so. Therefore, you're not what? Tricked, deceived, or frauded at any capacity, no matter what it is, personally or on a bigger scale. All right, this is how we identify. And if you're someone in position out there, if you're in a town hall, city council, whatever it may be, local legislature, state legislature, whatever it may be, wherever you are, you can identify this if you'll read what you need to know and sharpen your skills. Feed your soul with manna, as the saying is, but feed it with military manna and federal manna. And then you'll be green to go when it comes to local and state. So, what you're about to witness. So I've been hearing people, and I heard this in 2022, I heard it in 2023, I heard it in 2024. This comment's kind of gone away, and it's gone to some other comments, but I'm just going to brief this really quick to show you some stuff I've heard, and then going to answer that. But I always heard, why would President Trump, if President Trump was still in charge and President Trump never went away, why would he crash the economy? Why would it look like this? And why? All that time they spent wasting on why, all of what I do, God gave me a platform. Now, I know you got people out there, you can't please everybody. You'll have people, well, how can you claim to be a Christian and you say them 4-letter words and all this? And I said, well, the same way the Bible says you're not the judge. So you have everybody. There's so many people who want to mouth an opinion. You can't please everybody. Straight out the gate. Also, don't take things personal on social media. So if you hear me say the word dumb, stupid, or ignorant, well, if it affects you, then it might need it to affect you. Right? It might have hit a nerve somewhere. All right? Because, again, God had to give me a platform where I could deliver all the receipts in one sitting. And people who know me before all of this and before I got the badge and all the other stuff, people who know me knows that I was sitting on the phone with people for 4 and 5 and 6 hours explaining this to people. The people who wanted to know. And it wasn't that many, but there were some. And a friend of mine who was an author of books as well, Jackson, all right, friend of mine, family friend, I've known him my whole life, all right, he knows I sat with him on the phone and in person 3 and 4 and 5 hours. There was no way possible for me to go to every household and sit and tell exactly what this brain is capable of holding and spilling. So God did what? God made a way. He gave me a platform. I don't abuse it. I don't have sponsors on here, ads on here, nothing on here. You don't pay for a subscription. All right, so when I defend my name, that's different than me stirring up drama and stirring up stuff. I'll defend my name. I'll defend my character because I've already been verified. You can't do what I do without verification. All right, so when people are saying all kinds of trash out there, oh, we got evidence on that. No, you don't. You just keep dragging stuff out because there is no evidence. There's none of that stuff. And that is the deep state replication. People who steal information. People who take my information and make it look like theirs. That is plagiarism. Guess who's known for that? Joe Biden. The real Joe Biden. The Senator Joe Biden. He was known for plagiarism, where you'd have a senator or a congressman who had an idea and they're talking about it back here before they ever get to the floor, and then that person may have the floor before them, and then they get up there and I got this idea for a bill, and but it's plagiarism. All right, and you know how it comes back to bite you? Is when you can't back it up. And then what if it goes viral and you can't back it up? But also we're in a military operation right now. And it don't matter what anybody says. As long as the law shows we're in a continuity government, then I can show you where we're in a military occupation. By law. But not just federal law, but military law. And it don't matter who they are, what rank they were, if they're a veteran or if they're not a veteran. If they don't know what's currently in laws and orders that this man right here put his name, face, brand, and everything on, and his family, and his grandkids, and his great-grandkids, as long, this is a unique, special operation. Strategic and special. Pre-planned. Exactly what presidential emergency action documents are, which coincide with the continuity government. They're pre-planned. The whole thing is pre-planned. And what all these people have been jumping ship with the last week or two, they show that they're not faithful. They show they're not loyal. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't brag about being around President Trump. I'm not one of his tight-knit buddies, anything. Never pretended to be. I've had the honor and the privilege to be around him 12 or 14 times. I don't remember what the number is now. But the honor and the privilege. And it's awesome. It's awesome. And here's why it's awesome. Is the man is calculated and he's precise, but he's down to earth, he's witty. He is everything that my dad was. All right? The man's calculated. But this right here, there's no way it would have been possible without laws and orders. No way. Because the swamp was that deep. And this man is humble as well. All right? He's humble. He told all of you on a speech one time, even I didn't realize how deep the swamp was. So he was telling you, all right, it requires a team of people, a massive team of people. And that team needs what? Laws and orders that do what? Protect them. Because it's all going to be time-stamped back here. It's going to be time-stamped. So when it's time-stamped, therefore what? It's a proclamation. All right, it's time-stamped in history back here. So when you get to know special operations and you get to know strategic operations and pre-planned operations, when you get to know that, then it'll make sense. And you can escape all the other propaganda and drama that you think is real time. It's not real time. So just a couple weeks ago, I was banned from True Socially briefly for about 5 or 10 minutes there. I text a friend, who texts a friend, who texts Devin Nunes, and bam, I was right back up, and then boom, I had a what? A red check. All right, blue badge, but red badge on Truth. All right. But what was President Trump doing already? He was already baiting everybody. Now, this is not a game. You'll hear people out there, that was another one. I had a comment this week, it said people are dying right now while you guys play your little game and your strategic operation. Tell me when people have not been dying. Please, enlighten me. Tell me when, before President Trump, people haven't been dying. Tell me when people cared about child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking. I want to know, why wasn't you putting your foot down before President Trump? Why wasn't there this mass drove of people like there are now who attack me daily? And if you know they attack me, they're attacking people way higher than me. All right, tell me when you had the passion where were you? Where have you been? People die every day. That's the biggest crock of, you know what? Almost said it. Didn't say it. That's the biggest excuse you could ever make out of your mouth. To sit here and act like people didn't die before 2017. To sit here and act like there wasn't child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking. Where were you? Where have you been? All right? So if you're someone who makes that comment, see, that's why it sounds like it's direct, but it's not. It's direct to someone who makes that comment. That's how my videos are made. But I have to make a video as whole because I don't know who's going to watch it and when they're going to watch it. So a lot of you are faithful followers, you're faithful people, but you're real patriots. You've been fighting a good fight. And so we were talking today, some friends, we were talking about 2020. and the way we were treated in 2020. I'll never forget how I was treated in 2020. I never wore a mask. They didn't make me wear a mask. I never got the jab. I won't get the jab. It was all common sense. And I stood my ground, and I showed my ass, and I showed my ass in front of friends and family. And my friends and family, oh, why do you got to act like that? Well, guess who's got the platform now? Guess who knew the whole time? So a lot of you were treated the same way. And a lot of you don't forget it either. And we're not going to forget it. And a lot of these people who are surfacing, welcome to the fight, but know your place. Stay in your lane. Don't act like you knew the whole time. There's a proper way to do that. There's a proper way to be a part of the team, but still know your place. Stay in line. Don't steal information. Don't make it look like it's yours. Don't do that. The only way to drain the swamp is to stop replicating the swamp. So why do people replicate the swamp? With their actions, but also what? Their attitudes. Stop looking like the swamp. Stop replicating the swamp. Some of us know more. Now people can say, well, why weren't you there before 2022? I was. I was in my community. I was with my friends. I was with my family. All right? There's a lot of us that got called back in certain ways. All right? And that's why every veteran, if you know you're a good person, you know you're good at heart, and you know your laws and orders, you can be called back at any moment. All right? Voluntary or involuntary. And it has nothing to do either with the reservist clause either. All right? That, a lot of times that's to do with the reserve clause. Most veterans know that. But you can be called back at any time. You can be given an opportunity at any time by somebody out there in these key positions who have the power to do so, like they did with me. And that's why a lot of people need to realize, again, as long as law shows we're in a military operation, as long as law shows that, you'll be treated accordingly. So it's like when people call me an ass or a pompous ass or he's cocky and he's this, he's that. I'm operating in official capacity, at my capacity. I don't act bigger than I am. I don't act lower than I am. I stay in my lane. I do what I've been tasked to do. It's to deliver all the receipts to you because what my brain can comprehend and what it can hold. It's a military operation. And let me give you a prime example of that. Someone asked the other day, there was some questions somewhere, and I can't remember what it was, we get them too, about martial law. You know, what would deem the president to invoke martial law? I'm like, you're already in it. You're already in martial law. If you knew what a continuity government was by law, all right, and if you also knew what a presidential emergency action document is by law, even though they're draft classified, you can't Google them and see what's in them, but when you know there's a continuity government executive order that's been invoked, and there's a partial revocation of it, you can't revoke something that hasn't been invoked. So when you have a revocation, a partial revocation, not a full, that means we're still in a partial continuity government. So when you have a partial revocation, you have absolute proof. You already had absolute proof of the invocation of the executive order. But when you have a revocation of it, why would you revoke something that wasn't invoked? I mean, you can't, if you argue that, this may not be for you, boo-boo. You probably need to go on over to something a little bit Uno or Phase 10 or something a little bit more easier for you. All right, knitting, crocheting, I don't know, something a little bit more simple. All right, that'll work your brain up to this level. All right, it ain't a big level, but if you can't comprehend that okay, here's an invocation here and here's a partial revocation. A partial revocation means it was invoked. So you have full proof. And as long as you have full proof of a continuity government, then guess what you have full proof of? Presidential emergency action document. Because guess who established those? President Eisenhower, who was also a what? A 5-star general, which is rare. We've only had 8 total 5 stars, admirals and generals since the Civil War. Only 8 5-stars. So if you want to call me an ass, then go for it. Go for it. I'll own that because I'm here for people. I'm here for people who are struggling. I'm here for people. You can learn and you can escape the matrix. But my platform is where you can escape all the drama, the propaganda, the clickbait, the algorithm, the seekers. I call them algorithm whores. All they want you, they'll ask a question. What do you think about Obama? All you do is run their algorithms up. They don't show you anything. They don't give you anything. There's no solution there. It's not even really an opinion, most of them. It's clickbait. You control that. You do that. And the only way we're going to leave the past is for you to take control of your social media. You need to drain your swamp. You need to take control of that. Stop following all these propaganda pushers. The way you hurt them is to unfollow them. Stop commenting. Real simple. The only way we're going to sustain and maintain the future to not ever look like the crap that you and I lived through our lifetimes. All right, I was the last generation that didn't have cell phones. I didn't have. We didn't have. We were talking about this today. We'd go out, play in the yard, climb trees, build little huts and things like that. Sometimes your grandma and grandpa made you go out in the hot summer heat. They're like, you ain't staying in here. Go back out there and play. We went and played, but then we'd come in to cool off, and they're like, go on, get back out there. Drank out of water hoses, right? Ate dirt, shot. We had BB gun fights, and you talking about stupid and dangerous, but we did it. We cowboy and Indians, right? So I'm that last generation. No cell phones, none of that crap. None of it. The only way we're going to get back to wholesome life is to leave drama and propaganda, but that's going to require people. We're in a social media era. We're not going away from AI, social media, digital. So you have to sharpen your skills and understand what algorithms are and how these people bait you. They don't care about you. If they cared about you, they would come live on their profiles like I do and spend hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours. They don't do that. They don't give you straight up information that you can lead to, that you can bite into, sink your teeth into, and do what? Let your brain go, what is this? Let me read this, and then let me tie this in. It requires a lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of comprehension. One National Defense Authorization Act alone that I've read, the whole thing, top to bottom, 700 to 1,500 pages. That's just the NDAA. That's not executive orders, all of them, plural. Everything I'm talking about is plural. Executive orders, Army publications, Marine publications, Air Force publications, Space Force publications, Coast Guard publications, Department of Defense publications, National Security. We can keep going here. I've done all your homework. I've done all of it. That's what these books are for. Then you get called a grifter. Oh, these people, they're called patriots for doing all the homework for you. So I took all of the laws and orders, the NDAAs, the publications, and condensed down what you ended up. See, so you can't please everybody. Therefore, you have to do what? You got to hit these people where it hurts. You got to unfollow them. We're a capitalist nation, and someone who puts a book together with all of the shortcuts, like they used to have them in school and college when people didn't want to read To Kill a Mockingbird. You could go by the Cliff Notes, what they called it, and you could read the summary of it. And then you had to read the summary, but at least it was a summary of the whole book. You had people who didn't want to read the summary. Those are the people who are whining, complaining, griping, fussing right now, are the ones who didn't want to read. The ones who had what? History teachers who were what? Baseball coaches and football coaches. Ask me how I know. So as long as the law shows we're in continuity government, we're in continuity government. So I'm going to give you an example of people out there. So recently, President Trump and the military expanded the parameter of this property in Texas that you cannot put your foot in. It don't even matter if you're not an illegal migrant. If you're down there doing what people do in traffic when there's a wreck, if you're down there and you're not at official capacity like I could be, I have the badge to go there. I don't, because I know military don't like when there's a bunch of heads out there who are getting in their way. And even though I wouldn't get in their way and I could run with them and do whatever they're doing, I don't, because I respect my brothers and sisters in arms and Border Patrol and don't go down there. All right, because there's no need for that. They need to get their job done and do what they're supposed to be doing without anybody down there trying to spin some bullcrap narrative like these quote-unquote journalists have done in the past, which is being cleaned out, but there's still some out there. They're still doing it. All right? So they expanded this parameter. If you go down there like a little turkey head and going down there and bobbing around and looking where you ain't supposed to be looking, you're going to be treated accordingly. So it's the same thing. When you steal someone's information, it don't matter if it's public information. Public information can still be used as intellectual property, because I have a unique writing style. And my unique writing style is what led people to this. Therefore, it became what? Intellectual property when I put it on a website and I put it in a book. It's intellectual property. Doesn't matter if it's public information. It's because people didn't know that as public information. Then you go take my writing skills and you go take my style of writing and you make people think you wrote it. You're just as guilty. You can be charged. You can be hammered with theft of intellectual property. And President Trump just wrote an executive order for this. See, it shows people don't know the laws. And they think you've got to be a lawyer or a judge or whatever to know the law. You don't. And our founders were very keen on this. Our founders in the Declaration of Independence, everybody needed to go read the Declaration of Independence, top to bottom, and read the Federalist Papers, top to bottom, 1 through 85. Go read the Federalist Papers. That's why liberals look atrocious right now all over X a while ago. They're still saying stuff about democracy. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution that they love to use in their mouth as well. They'll say the Constitution, but Article 4, Section 4 says Republic. Federalist Paper number 10 and number 14, James Madison, the same guy, the father of the Constitution. That's what his title is, the father of the Constitution. In Federalist Paper number 10 and 14 says democracies, pure democracies are dangerous. And here's liberals, they love to use President Trump's a violation of the Constitution. But you're calling us a democracy, and Article 4, Section 4 says we're a republic. And Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14 by the same man who wrote the Constitution say how democracies are dangerous. The other thing about these people who are stealing information, all right, and making it look like theirs, well, what if they have an ulterior motive? What if they're not really a President Trump supporter and they blow up with a stolen piece of information, but then they twist and then they go against the president? Or look at all these big platforms out there. They got 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million followers, and they're saying everything against President Trump right now. You know what they could be charged with? Sedition. It don't matter what category they are. Blatantly stealing it, blatantly posting it, whatever it may be, innocently stealing it. It doesn't matter. Sedition. The 1798 Aliens and Seditions Act, a lot of people leave off the seditions because the 1800 Congress abolished that portion, but President Trump has mentioned what? President Trump has mentioned going in and modifying and ratifying Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act, which all ties into this. Also, during the State of the Union address, he had Melania sitting there, our First Lady, and he had 2 young women sitting there beside Melania. And he said, so-and-so here, she had this done to her maliciously on the internet, and so-and-so here had this done to her, which is why I'm signing an executive order for what? And he said, I will be using that myself. And it's for people who take information or they take your photos and they maliciously take your family or your friends or whatever it may be and post you out there for the whole world. And it's stuff that's violent, malicious, sexual, but not you doing it, them doing it. We have to get a quell on this stuff. So why are so many people replicating that from the quote-unquote patriot world, the quote-unquote Republican world, the quote-unquote conservatives? Looking just like what liberals do in deep state replication. So that's why journalism, the same people who steal information will turn and do what? Complain about journalists. What, whoever. Wall Street Journal. President Trump's hammering them right now. NPR, PBS, all these people that President Trump's hammered. What did they do for years? They twisted information. They weaponized against the people. They told people all these lies, defamation, slander, libel, all these different things. So why are people replicating that? Why are people stealing from me? Why do people try to steal my federal trademark? All because I have a freedom of expression? Tried to steal my trademark? Tried to prevent book sales? They put it in writing. They told what their intent and motives were. Same thing. So if you want journalism to be different, shouldn't you expect that from people who are around you? It starts with us. It starts down here. So look at all the stuff that's been written about President Trump. Look what's taking place right now, this 50th anniversary letter. All right, President Trump said it's a hoax, it's fake, it's fraudulent. I'm going to sue the ass off of Murdoch. Where do you drop? See, so I saw a meme today, and it said that people don't defend what's right anymore. People defend who they like, even though it may be wrong or the information wrong. We have to get back to knowing laws and orders, a foundation. When you know the laws and the orders, then you can question if you don't like it. If you don't like a law, then you can say, hey, I don't like this law. And we can, okay, well, what do you think it should be? What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that law? But when you're just cussing, fussing, bickering, mad, angry, sad, and it's over an opinion, over some like surface level opinion, which is drama and propaganda, that's not a solution. That's the same thing doctors have done to everybody the last 40, 50 years. They treat the symptom versus cure the problem. So when you're bickering and fussing and angry and mad and sad and you're stealing and you're this and you're that and you're sharing and that, it's like a ball of yarn. It's everywhere. You don't want that. We don't want that. And that's not what this whole operation is about. When you want to drain the swamp, you don't replicate the swamp. You don't keep replicating the swamp. So this is before we can even get to a breakdown of the operation. We have people who are just following drama. Nothing's new right now. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Darren Jonhson, breaking news. There's nothing new. Everything you need to know is already invoked in laws and orders. What's taking place right now with quote-unquote Obama? It's all pre-planned, all strategic. You'd know that if you knew the laws and orders. And then you wouldn't act the way you act, the ones who are negative, down, angry, sad, whatever you are, whatever it is in negative or Debbie Downer world, you wouldn't act like that if you knew the laws and orders and vote. You'd know it's pre-planned, you know it's strategic, you know it's a special operation, sting operation, and you know it's unique laws and orders via special operations of the whom? Military. It had to be done lawfully, but it had to be done by military law. We've always had federal laws. We've always had federal laws, and guess what the swamp didn't do? Abide by them. Enforce them. So federal laws don't do anything. You had to have military to be able to pull this draining of the swamp off, not just in the U.S., but globally. So that's why you got to strengthen yourself on clickbait, algorithms, and all these people out there who are doing nothing but baiting you, and they're baiting your emotions, and then they're misleading thousands of people during a military operation. And as long as law, again, shows we're in a continuity government, we're in a military occupation, which is a military operation, and because of that, they're misleading people. Therefore, I'm going to act the way I always act, because I care about people. And I care when I see people who are quote-unquote influencers blatantly misleading people when there is a blueprint in place by President Donald John Trump. 45-47 is the whole operation, the whole thing. That's your visual of an operation. 45 through 47, 45 to 47, 45, 46, and 47. The whole thing's an operation. And there's veterans out there, like myself, who knew what was going on the whole time. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Knew what was going on. As soon as the first unique law went into place. In all my books here, I know people, oh, he's advertising his books again. Freaking idiots. Well, why is it me? Why did I do this off the top of my head? Top of my head. I drew the outline. I got the piece of paper to this day, the outline. Top of my head. No publisher, no ghostwriters, all me. These stem from my documents that people talk about, the documents. It's what it became known as. They were so popular and big, guess what happened when I went viral? Facebook wouldn't even let people send the link through Messenger. They have blocked the documents.info from even being sent through Messenger. That is how powerful they are and were. Ask people who tried to send it. There's a lot of people who follow me still from the very beginning. They tried to send it through Messenger and it would show the little error. It wouldn't even let people send it via Messenger. You want to talk about your freedoms? You want to talk about, now Zuckerberg's been dealt with, and Facebook, all these things, a lot of them have been dealt with, and they're still going through compliance and all the things of what's going to look like. But way back then, before they were dealt with, you want to talk about your freedoms being squandered, your freedom of expression, your freedom of speech? Everybody knows who had their Facebooks deleted or had to go to Facebook jail, as we called it. People couldn't even send the link. They had to separate it and then tell their friends, hey, put that T and this together. I had to just put a space there where Facebook, and then Facebook started catching on to that. Ask the people who know. Facebook started catching on to people separating it and saying, hey, put those together. It don't really look like that. Put that together and then put that in your domain over there on your URL and then hit enter. So those books stem long before I went viral to know people to know my face, my name, everything. And another thing, I'm known for my name. All right. Now, I do have Rattletrap 1776, but I'm also known for my name. Never hid my face. The people you see talking trash, no name, no face, a few followers. Because they're cowards, and they're not real. And they're meant to try to deceive you. All right? Don't fall for that stuff. I'm my full name, my full face. All right? Now, there's people out there, they'll tell you they're military intelligence. They'll tell you, oh, I'm military intelligence, and all this stuff. It don't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. It just doesn't. Dan Scavino don't hide his name and face. You look at all the people who are real and authentic. You don't hide your name and face. Whatever capacity you're at your capacity for a reason. So you got all these people out there, they'll try to make a cool little name and say, I'm a ghost and I'm so-and-so and I'm... No, it don't work like that. And they are, and if you're following that, both of you, they, you, or both, all you're doing is a disgrace to the people who are actually in military intelligence, all right, or any department out there. You're taking away from the respect, but also the integrity of those layers and those systems. Now, have they always been perfect? Nope. That's why we're going through the draining of the swamp. That's why we're having a military operation right now. But just because they're going through that don't mean that those organizations can't be great in the future. President Trump told you this in 2017. He said it's not the three-letter agencies themselves as a whole. It's the senior level leadership, quote unquote, who was in the senior levels. So you got to be careful with that stuff. Laws still show continuity of government. Know the laws. You don't have to be a lawyer to know the law. As of right now, you have to be a lawyer to practice the law. But you don't have to be a lawyer of any sort, of any kind, to know the law. Know the Declaration of Independence. So now we're going to get into the people who ask those questions again, and kind of what people are doing about, well, why would it look like this and all this other stuff and da-da-da-da-da, whatever. Whatever it is, you got to know what took place in American history. And it wasn't that long ago. And again, you got to listen, right? So 1951 and 1973 are very, very key dates where the swamp went really swampy, stanky, stank-ass swamp. If you've ever been around anybody who's been in the swamp, I hunt in swamps, I go in swamps, all right, during the hunting season. The swamps have a stench, all right? Louisiana people, Mississippi people, parts of Texas, Beaumont regions. If you've ever been in a swamp, it's got a little stench to it, all right? So this is where the swamp went really swampy, went derailed. So in 1941, President Roosevelt was in his fourth term now, that not at that time period, but he was in his fourth term when he died, voted on by the people. That's very important for people to know. Term limits didn't change until 1951. Wasn't that long ago. My dad was alive. All right, wasn't that long ago. Some people hear that and they think, oh, it was 1800. No, 1951. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in his fourth term when he died. 13th year, voted on by the people. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution doesn't say anything about term limits. It don't even command the Congress. It don't command any Congress, court, anybody to put term limits on the president. Nowhere. George Washington commented on it, and a few others of our founders, they commented. They said they didn't think a president needed more than 2 terms. But that was when they were what? Cohesive. That's when they what? Worked together. Talked together after what? The war. So you can't apply where we are now to back then. And so, well, George Washington said we only needed 2 terms. No, he said he thought a president only would need 2 terms. You got to listen to the context. See, context matters. Terminology matters. We have such a low-level education in this nation. Data shows 54% of Americans are at a 6th grade education of reading and below on average. Which are the ones who end up in my comment boxes? The ones that are negative. The ones who are negative and Debbie Downers. Because you don't want to read, you don't want to study what matters. You just want an opinion, you want your voice said, you want to be the little funny one in the comment or whatever, but you don't want to listen to what matters. You don't want to apply what you listen to. You hear, you don't listen. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1942, had a speech to the Congress. He said, if you don't act, I will. I'm the Commander-in-Chief. If you don't act, I will. And when I get done doing what we're doing, then the power will go back to whom? The people. Don't that sound like a speech you heard not terribly long ago? Don't that sound like a speech that you heard that you thought was brand new maybe? And that's okay. We ain't not here to knocking patriots today. But don't that sound like a speech you heard January the 20th, 2017? When a fellow had his hand raised high and these military walked down behind him, and they showed you an optic that day of military intelligence and Judge Advocate General, the 2 key components of courts, military tribunals, and the people who what? Gather the information for that, the evidence, the proof, as people call it. Oh, I need unequivocal proof. People will believe a lie like that. But when a guy like me shows you the whole thing, I'm either a grifter or I'm full of this, or I got to have something in my closet, or Franklin Roosevelt telling the Congress, when we get done with what we're doing and we win this war, we're going to give the power back to whom? The people. But what did Congress do back then? They didn't do that. Congress didn't do that to you. Especially if you're in the bracket of 70 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old right now. They didn't do that to you. They had this little thing, the New Deal. And they had all these great programs that got you put your money into, Social Security being one of them. And what do? They hijacked them. That's what all these people did. Because when Eisenhower's died and Roosevelt's died, when they died, guess what? Guess who it was left to? The ones who were right up under them. And what did they do? Some either quit, went home, and retired, and then what happened? Other people got in positions and they what? Lust of what? Money. President Eisenhower's famous speech on January the 17th, 1961, the military-industrial complex. People hear that, but they don't apply it. People hear, but they don't apply. He said he didn't like where the military was going because of what? Money. Privileges. Benefits. Medical. Dental. Stability. Do you know in the military that once you get in a house, or even in a barrack, you don't pay a light bill, you don't pay a power bill, you don't pay anything? Did you know that? That's how easy the military is on that aspect. Medical, dental. So shouldn't military know the laws more than anybody because of this excellent life that the military gets? I mean, what's so bad with a guy like me who served for the right reasons, honorably, and retired? What's so bad with wanting brothers and sisters in arms to know why they served, the oath they took, the laws they served under, which are unique and separate and different from federal? Shouldn't they want to know that more with the cushy life outside of your missions and outside of some of the duties you have, outside of some of the tough days? Shouldn't they want to know this stuff because of the awesome status they have and what they get to build up and rank to? And the higher you rank, the more pay you get when you retire. Shouldn't you want to know that stuff? Shouldn't that just be not even so much of, got to from a military standpoint, meaning like a law? Oh, you got to know this. In order to rank up, you got to know it. Shouldn't they want to know it? See the terminology there that people don't listen to? There's a difference in got to and want to. I want to know this stuff. I wanted to know why I served. I knew that before I went in. I knew the whole time when I was serving about regulations and reading regulations. It's a lot to read. It is. But that's what you're there for. Laws, orders, that's what you're there for. How would you know if you're taking an unlawful order if you don't know lawful orders? How would you know if you don't know the law? How would you know not to take a certain order if you don't know the law, if it's lawful or not? Law don't work on opinion. Law works on what? A foundation. It's a neutral ground. That's what the law is. That's why a law can be slightly interpreted different. Slightly. But the laws are written neutral. That's also how the swamp did what to all the people? Deceived people. Because the law is neutral. The ones who did go through the years and look up the law that some politician used for gaslighting, well, the one who went over there and did read didn't have enough people around them to do what? Rise up, stand up, and say, you're gaslighting, and you just messed up because the law says this and you did this. But throughout history, and recent history, people forgot knowing the three branches of government, how it works, how it functions, and the basic core principles of laws and orders. Therefore, they couldn't do what? Stand up and sound sane. Now, politicians weren't going to listen to you anyways, because they were already breaking the laws, and they were writing all these laws. They, the legislators, were writing all these laws, not based on what we, the people, wanted, but what they saw, and what would benefit their what? Pocketbook. So when you hear people talk about President Trump, right, and he says they're incompetent, you know why you have all the taxes you have? Because they were incompetent. All these taxes that were created through the years is because swamp politicians were incompetent. They didn't know how to create wealth and value for people, jobs and wealth, depending on the times and what the times were doing, right? more cotton this year than corn, and more barley this year than wheat, and whatever it is. No. Incompetent politicians just kept a tax for a tax, and they kept doing what, though? Printing money. And they kept printing more money, and printing more money. And then what do? Tax you for it. They put a tax here and a tax here and a tax for this and a tax for that. The only way to get control of that is to do what? Draw a line in the sand and say what? Enough's enough. We know what you've been doing. You're incompetent. You're stupid. You're idiots. A lot of you are stupid and incompetent. And a lot of you are ignorant and what? Evil. President Trump separated that. He said a lot of them are just stupid and incompetent, but he said a lot of them are also what? Ignorant, but they're smart for one reason. They know what they're doing. They know that they're stealing from the American people. So why wouldn't you want to know what's going on to see the line in the sand? There is an absolute blueprint and a strategic special operation. And it all went awry in most everybody's lifetime. But especially if you're in your 70s, your 80s, it went awry in your lifetime. We can use the Organic Act of the 1870s. It spiraled from then. But it really went downhill in 51 when Congress put term limits on the president but did not put them on themselves. That right there should be for everybody listening who hasn't heard that yet or applied that. That's a flag right there in the ground. That should be easy to see. Oh, so you're putting term limits on the president, but not yourselves. So you put term limits on one person, but not 535. Then, in 1973, Congress of 1973 amended the War Powers Acts of 1941 and 42. Amended those and made it the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973. They put limitations on the president, who they'd already put term limits on, but not themselves, but then goes and puts limitations on the president of how he can use the whom? Military. So when people say why, and why would it look like this, and how would they do that, and why would they do that, blah, 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 you should be asking how. Don't ask what. Ask, hey Derek, man, well how would they do that? Like lawfully and strategically, and be inquisitive the right way. Don't look like a Debbie Downer. But a lot of people who ask the whys are Debbie Downers, and it is negative. So people wonder why a lot of my videos look the same. Well, it's because I'm still know there's a lot of people out there. My followers get that, and the good patriots get it. But we're out here trying to save the people who are absolutely lost. What else are we doing it for? If people already know and people are clicking, then they matter from another standpoint. Because, hey, welcome on the ship, welcome on the board. Let's go back out and get the other people who are lost, confused right now. You were lost and confused at one time, some of you. You're not lost and confused anymore. It worked for you. You may have bought a book. You may have bought a shirt, but have you bought any butt cream from me? Have you bought anything else from me? Have you paid a subscription to figure out what you figured out? No. All right? So the books cost money to print. I can't make them just happen. It's too long for Google Drive. I already know what Google Drive will hold. They gave me limitations way back when. So it ain't going to hold a 600-page book on Google Drive, and I can't add everybody and their mama to Google Drive. So I had to do what? Print a book. Therefore, hard work does what? It requires work. So why would I do all this work to just, the book was $10 a print, it was $10 a buy. That makes no sense. It's a capitalist nation. If you got a problem with a capitalist nation, then go see President Trump, the man that many claim to support. If you got a problem with the capitalist nation, you got some problems. So the people that we need to get to are the lost people. Because the whole goal of draining the swamp is to do what? Drain the swamp, leave the swamp behind, learn from the swamp, leave the swamp behind, but then do what? Maintain and sustain the future. Which means what? Not replicating what that bullcrap looked like. Not letting a bunch of idiots get in here and do what? Not know how to run the system, maintain the system. They call that maintainability and sustainability. Why would we want to end up in 20 years and 30 years what we just came out of? So what does that require? People who are tough, have tenacity, have skills, have the attitudes, the correct attitudes, direct, straightforward. This is how it is, this is how it's working, this is what's going to look like. We don't want to be right back where we just came from in 10, 15. With our population where it is, if we didn't educate people on what just took place, what's taking place, and where we're headed, and how we maintain and sustain and not replicate that bullcrap, then what are we doing? If we're not educating people on, hey, why do you want to look like that? Well, this is what the operation's for, is to drain that, to get rid of that. So why are so many Republicans, conservatives, and patriots replicating that? Liberals are supposed to, because they don't know any better and they don't want to know any better. So it's probably going to require something that does what? Scares the you-know-what out of them, all right? Which is going to take a lot to scare a liberal, because they're already, you know, we know what they got working with up here. It ain't much. So what are we here for? If we're just here to just, congregate with each other, but never go out there and find the ones who are lost. But you don't want to be the one who's misleading people when you can't tote the water. So all the negative comments and the negative messages and whatnot, that's why I have videos. I can't answer every message. Not that way. I can answer certain things, but not that way. Some questions require video. So when you want to know what's taking place, you got to know the laws, the orders. It required a line in the sand. It required a line in the sand, and we're done. And here's what's going to take place. We got to drain the swamp. We got to do it lawfully. But we already have federal laws, and federal laws can only go so far when it comes to certain things that needed to be drained. And then operations. Drug trafficking funds a lot of the other trafficking. So when President Trump and the military, they launched an operation in April 1st, 2020 with 22 joint partners. In the past, yes, Obama and all them, they had a few drug busts in the past. But it was just enough to make people think that they were doing something. But it was never an overhaul like President Trump has done. An all-out war on drug trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking. Laws show so, and visuals show so. So what everybody has to do on your daily now, instead of looking up clickbait crap, come to my page and I show you people who I've been on with who are good people. But instead of going to clickbait crap, there's nothing new right now. You're going to have to do what? Empower yourself. Go to Google. Type in Coast Guard operation, drug trafficking. Find all the recent drug trafficking busts. They tell you about it. You got to go look it up and read about it. Look how many busts there have been. Look at all the busts they're having, and they're monumental. They're huge. Talking about millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in busts. And when they're going at this rate of speed and they're busting that many at that rate of speed, guess what can't happen on the other side, the evil side? The production rate. They can't produce enough because they're losing so much. And when their money gets stifled and stopped, guess what? They dry up. You got to understand that. And that's what's going to help you. That's what they're doing, is drying the money. President Trump told you from the get-go, follow the money. Well, they're following the money. So, 51-73. Those key things took place. Now, My grandfather, who will be gone 20 years in September, it's hard for me to comprehend how fast life goes by. But my grandfather taught me everything I know, guitar, songwriting, etc. That side of my life. But he was also an Army veteran. He lied about his age to get into World War II. Lied about his age. He served during the time period of the puppet government of the Philippines, 1943 to 1945. I learned about puppet governments through my grandfather and my great uncles. Most of them are all passed on, the ones who served. Great uncles as well. The puppet government. The most popular puppet government was the Second Philippines Republic. President Quezon was the actual president of the Philippines. President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, that we were just talking about a while ago, Franklin Roosevelt brought Quezon to D.C. and he capitulated to the U.S. A surrender. And Roosevelt and our military had command of the Filipino military. Japan installed a faux, F-A-U-X, a fake faux president that the media of the Philippines thought was real, and some of the Filipino people thought was real, because they didn't know what happened to Quezon. And you got to look at technology of 1943, 1945. They didn't have this right here. So those people thought that this installment was their quote-unquote president. He had no control. The faux president had zero, zilch, no control of the Filipino military. The only thing that they had control of, this person and Japan, was civil affairs. Now that's very important. As we move forward, that is very, very important. I'm going to say it one more time because it's very important. The president who had control of the military was capitulated under Roosevelt and was brought from the Philippines to Washington, D.C. The faux president was installed by Japan. The media thought he was real, and some of the Filipino people thought he was real. Only had control of civil affairs. So now let's go back to January the 20th, 2017, when President Trump was standing there and the military walked down behind him. Those insignia, military intelligence, and judge advocate generals. Now, to tie this in really quick before we hop straight over to Obama completely, remember what President Trump just retruthed a couple weeks ago. All roads lead to Obama. Reshare if you would like to see public military tribunals. Well, a military tribunal is going to require what? A judge, lawyers, and evidence. You know what they call the judges in the military? Judge Advocate General. Do we know who gathers information and evidence and proof as the civilians out there who just keep whining and complaining when all the proof is there already? Military intelligence. The two headbands standing right beside President Trump. As he said, we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. Same thing that Franklin Roosevelt said in 1942. There was three things. Three. Uno, dos, tres. Only three things that were consistent from 2021 to 2025, only 3 things, militarily speaking, that were consistent with quote-unquote Joe. Only 3 were consistent from 2021 to 2025. Insignia, every time you saw a soldier around quote-unquote Joe, military intelligence, judge advocate general, civil affairs, and psychological operations. Now that sounds like 2 things, but those 2 are under the same umbrella. 3 things: military intelligence, judge advocate general, and civil affairs and psychological operations insignia. Anytime they showed a soldier around quote-unquote Joe, that was the insignia on a soldier. And you're going to tell me, a retired veteran who showed you Army regulations, military regulations, DOD regulations, all the receipts, all the laws, you're going to tell me, oh, it's a coincidence. If you didn't have anything posted on the Federal Register, which most people didn't even know about the Federal Register until I came along, but if you didn't have something posted on the Federal Register, like an executive order by quote-unquote Joe, if you didn't have any kind of thing that you could stumble on even, just stumble on it. You don't even have to really know it like I do. But if you didn't have anything from 2021 to 2025 where it was supposed to be, then guess what it does? It already shows you your answer. See, if you will flip that old saying, walk a mile in my shoes, remember that song, Elvis, right? If you would flip the equation sometimes of some things have like a mirror image, but some things don't. If there wasn't anything posted on the Federal Register where the executive orders go, proclamations go, presidential actions go, if there wasn't anything there, you would have your what? Your answer. But because there's something there, oh, well, there shows Joe Biden had an executive order right here, an executive order. No. Not by law. See, so you gotta either believe laws and orders over here, because the laws and orders show not just laws and orders, the laws and orders show a unique, strategic, special operation. If they didn't show those, then you would just have straight up regular laws and orders. And then it'd be harder to prove because you wouldn't have the proof. But because there's unique, strategic, pre-planned, special, operation, military laws, military orders, because there's the continuity government indication, because there's so many things over here that show this unique, strategic, special operation, then these executive orders on the Federal Register are negated because you have this over here. So you either got to believe in one or the other. It's not a double. And it's a direct replica of a puppet government, which are found in what? The Law War Manual and also Special Operations. So you only have 2 options. And there's another fun double option that we're going to get to later, but you only have 2 options. You've got to either believe in that because the laws show that, and a guy like me can show you that, and not just me, but the veterans I go on with, all Special Operations, we show you that, or you got to believe this. You can't have both. They don't work like that. There's a fine print blueprint that outlines a puppet government. It just does. So we're going to bounce around a little bit, and then I'm going to come back around to this. I will come back to that with that, your 2 options. But Obama's resurfacing all of a sudden. Obama's resurfacing. Well, just a couple weeks ago, there wasn't any mention of Obama by President Trump except for the one little post. But everybody's been distracted by everything else. Obama's been quiet. He's been relatively quiet. All right. He just started talking trash again in the last week or so. Well, no, it's not been a week. It's been 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, the big, beautiful bill. He started trash talking it. Before that, he ain't really said much of anything. All right, on social media. All right. So Obama's resurfacing all of a sudden. So all this time period. Also during the time period he was campaigning. All right. They weren't hitting President Trump with what they could have hit him with. There was a lot of things they could have done, but they didn't do it. So all of a sudden President Trump's president again, right? To the people who thought he left and all that. So we'll go with that for a moment. And all of a sudden he's resurfacing 6 months in. All right, 5.5, 6 months. All of a sudden. Then him and old Big Mike, old Michelle, are in this video talking about their divorce, right? Or the rumors of the divorce. When you first watch the video, he walks in and the tone is not sarcastic. The tone isn't laughing. The tone is not anything like that. So see, a lot of people don't read that anymore. People have forgotten about voice registers, tones, room settings, the feelings, the emotions, all that. People have forgotten that. But this video is supposedly with her quote-unquote brother. All right, and he walks in the room, and she goes, Barack Obama, this is Michelle, oh, Big Mike, Barack Obama, can you join the room? And he comes in there, look at you, and they hug each other, saying, look at you, look at you. And then she goes, how are you? Does that sound like somebody who's married to you? Does that sound like that? Then go listen to the other comments. Oh, finally nice to have the two of you in a room together. Does that sound like two people who have been married for X amount of years that they quote-unquote have? So see all the stuff that they're showing you, some of it's distractions, some of it's just keeping people going, because there's a bigger operation going over here. All right. So it's kind of like this. Now let's go back to Epstein really quick. Let's just hop over there on that really quick. Got a little note here on this. Now, if you hate somebody, now, I don't hate anybody. I dislike a lot of people, but I don't hate anybody. Hate is a very strong word by the terminology and the tone of which it's established in the Bible. Hate is a very strong word. I don't hate anybody, no matter what they've done to me. The dude who tried to steal my federal trademark, tried to lie about me. All these people who try to start rumors about me. It's all fake, it's all false. They have nothing, because there is nothing there. I wouldn't have the role I have with what I have if there was something there in the first place. All right? But they don't know that because they're not official capacity. All right? So what is stealing a federal trademark and trying to spread rumors and lies about and create fake text messages, right? They were trying to Photoshop fake messages of me and certain females and get that spread. What does my freedom of expression have to do with you creating fraud and lies, misinformation, frame up, which all can be qualified as felonies? Now, I don't hate these people. I dislike them, and they should be punished in many ways, and God's going to have the final say-so on them and their life. But also, we went through JAG and got certain things under control with the certain, especially the pony boy himself, the main one. All right? But I don't hate them. I actually pray for them. I pray for my enemies. All right? Pray for them. That's what the Bible says to do. All right? I pray for them. I don't like them. And God says nowhere in the Word that I can't dislike anybody, but you're not supposed to hate people, because God says vengeance is His, not mine. So I also be careful with my social media of what and what I don't do. Now, when people plagiarize and steal, I call people out, because I'm like, that's not your work. You didn't do that. My hard work. I go through all this crap. I go through all this hate and negativity and all that. You're not going to steal my work either. That ain't going to happen. All right, so there's a place and a time for everything. But I don't hate these people. But if you hated somebody, as the Democrats display. I mean, Pelosi has had some very strong words in the past, the real Pelosi. Look at Biden, all these people. They hate President. Hillary hates Donald John Trump, the man and the president, hates him. If you hated somebody and had so much animosity in your heart for somebody, but especially if you thought they were taking your spot, your glory, and all this, especially like Hillary displayed when she lost in 2016, and she didn't even show up for the concession, all that stuff. Look at the cowards these people are, and look at what they gaslight people with in the past. But then when it comes to doing what? A loss, they didn't even show up for a concession speech. What kind of leader is that? These people hate President Trump, the ones when they were in their real capacity. Now, most of us know what's happened, but don't worry about that right now. This is for the people who don't know yet. We're bringing them up to speed. If you hate somebody, you would pull out everything lawful in your power to do what? Show the people, hey, this person did this right here. This is what the law says. Here's what they did. But these people have never what? The real ones never abided by the law as the law was prescribed by. And they didn't do it with what? Integrity of the law. They always lied, plagiarized, scrubbed something here, scrubbed something there. Oh, erase something here, erase something there. Gaslit you here, gaslit you there. That's what the swamp did the whole time. They never stood on a basis of integrity from the front, through the middle, to the end. My mom and dad and grandparents always raised me, if you do what's right on the front, you won't have to worry about anything else. The front takes care of everything else by doing what's right. Once you tell one lie, you got to do what? Once you tell one lie, everything moving forward is based on what? That lie. So you got to do what? Keep telling a lie, and keep telling a lie, and keep telling a lie until you do what? You run out of lies. And then you done benefited from what? Most of them benefited on what? The emotions of the people and taxpayers and everything else. So why would not, I like to say it like President Trump says, why would not, but why wouldn't, quote unquote, Biden, Bill, Hillary, George, Kerry, Romney, where'd all these people go? Where'd they go? But if they were there, if they're free to roam, they're free to go anywhere, free to post anything, free of their, if their social media is authentic, where'd they go, for one? And two, why didn't they hammer President Trump? So remember, this is why law matters. So real Biden, Vice President Biden, recommended, and you heard President Trump on the 2020 campaign trail say, it was you, Joe. It was you, Joe, even though that Joe had already been replaced. But the real Joe, it was you, Joe, who recommended the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. It was you, Joe, who recommended to Obama. So the vice president recommended to the president to use the what? The Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. Logan Act is 18 United States Code, section 953. It's titled, The Private Correspondence of a Foreign Leader. So, if Vice President Biden could recommend to President Obama the Logan Act, then hypothetical, even though I know Biden wasn't real and it was a puppet government, civil affairs, all pre-planned, on purpose, why wouldn't President, quote-unquote, President Biden, if he was real, why would he use the Logan Act on former, quote-unquote, former President Trump for meeting with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April to December 2024? If President Trump was a former president, and if Biden was a sitting president, that would have been a violation of the Logan Act, because all of those leaders that President Trump met with exception of one, was a former prime minister. All the others were active, which means they were the current foreign leader. So if President Trump was a former, there he was not only breaking federal law, Title 18, which is federal law and criminal procedures. That's what it's titled, Title 18. Not only was he breaking that, but he was also breaking his own executive order with national emergency, Executive Order 13848, which is election interference, because 2024 was a what? Election year. Do you really think that President Donald John Trump, who already, with the dumb liberals out there, even though I know this is an operation and it's all going to be exonerated, this is going to be exonerated, but for right now, for the people who don't know that, President Trump already has fought daily for his name, his character, and everything from day one. Do you really think that that man would do something on purpose that he can never recover from by law? I don't think so, and I know so. So if you hate someone, you would do what? If you had everything by law, evidenced by law, proof by law, you would do what? You would show people that, hey, this person is breaking federal law, military laws, they're breaking this. And by law, if Biden was real, and all this was real time, by law, even a guy like me who goes by laws and orders, by lawful orders, if President Trump was not in an official capacity of a wartime president in a unique strategic special operation, if this was all real time and had it been real time, by law, the whole operation would have been negated, because that would have been a violation of federal law. And everything that President Trump stood on would have been a violation of law. And no matter how you dislike somebody or hate them, quote unquote Biden, had he been real, had he been president, had that been a real presidential administration, they would have been able to prosecute President Trump by federal law, just on that one little thing alone. Plus Texas standing at the border, all right, of a military operation. That is a federal operation. Anything border-wise is a federal. Texas is not the only border. We have multiple borders, and everybody forgets about our northern border with Canada. It's a federal issue. Those little things alone can most certainly 100% unequivocal prove that quote-unquote Joe is not and was not real and was not president. It's a puppet government. And it's not old fogey just because you've never heard of it. It's not far-fetched just because you've never heard of it. It's not a conspiracy theory just because you've never heard of it. And if you think that, whoever's still out there thinking that, you're disrespecting military and military laws, orders, regulations, but also strategies and tactics, because it's all military by law. And there's 4 ways military pairs with federal: executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. Guess what those 4 are? The 4 components of a what? Presidential emergency action document. So, you see all these people out there. For example, there's a dude on X named, he calls himself Gunther. He is the biggest idiot on the planet. All right, now I say that as lovingly as possible. I don't hate him. I dislike him because he can know exactly what I know, but he has 1.4 million followers, and he misleads people daily with clickbait, algorithm bait. All right, President Trump has shared him a couple times, and all he's doing is misleading people. The other evening, last night maybe, says he said if Obama is not prosecuted, the country is F-U-C-K-E-D. And he blocked out, obviously, the U. No, we're not. If that dude and all the other clickbait platforms out there calling themselves quote-unquote influencers, if they knew what's going on right now, Look at all the people they're misleading with their bullcrap. Look at all these people who could absolutely be on page right now and on par and where they're supposed to be with President Donald John Trump and what he's done and what he put his whole name, face, brand, image, and family on. And military and veterans that he loves, and all the other rumors they said about him saying all that bullcrap. No, he did not. No. Quote-unquote Biden's the one that called them bastards, stupid bastards. All right? It's all there. But if these clickbait platforms knew what they're supposed to know, you'll know why I got banned briefly a couple weeks ago on Truth Social. Supreme Court docket case 23-939, March 19th, 2024. It's already been a year. It's been a year, over a year since this was docketed. Supreme Court docket 23- the dash matters 939. It specifically asks, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder on a political rival? Well, the last time SEAL Team 6 was involved with the president was Obama and Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden died May the 2nd, 2011. 5 months later, Gaddafi was killed. Who was Barack Hussein Obama? Who was his Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013? Hillary Rodham Clinton? What was Benghazi, Libya about, and why was Hillary Rodham Clinton the one who was under congressional oath, who pissed off a lot of veterans with her response? Wasn't that Hillary Rodham Clinton in Benghazi, Libya? Who was the leader of Libya from 1969 to 2011 to his quote-unquote assassination? Gaddafi? Who stood in front of the UN Assembly in 2011? Who stood in front of the Assembly and said that 5 world powers can't rule everybody? The same 5 world powers? And he also said that, are we not going to investigate why Saddam Hussein was hanged? You do know, this is what he said, I'm still quoting Gaddafi. He said, you know that Dick Cheney, was friends with Saddam, then they hanged him. And then he said, it'll happen to either one of you. The United States will do the same thing to us. And who was laughing at him? They were all laughing at him. And who did they zoom in on? Al-Assad, who fled Syria December the 8th, 2024. Didn't President Trump just sign a trade deal with Syria? Isn't President Trump the very first president to end a national emergency from the swamp with these nations that we were once boots on the ground with? First president to end national emergencies of the swamp, President Donald John Trump. And then open up trade with Syria. One of those trade letters you just saw. Assad fled Syria December the 8th, 2024. One of the people laughing at Gaddafi, who lost his life, who wanted a gold standard back. That one Supreme Court docket case opens a massive can of worms on Obama, Hillary, George W. Because who was president in 2008 when Epstein took a state plea deal? A state, not federal, state. George W. Bush was president in 2008. And then 2010, this little thing that President Trump called the greatest scandal in U.S. history. It's called Uranium One. Who was president again in 2010? Obama. Who was vice president? Biden. Who was Secretary of State? Hillary. Who got paid to speak $500,000? Bill, who was not president of Russia? Putin? He wasn't president. Now you know why he capitulated July 16, 2018 with a soccer ball. He wasn't president. He wasn't direct man in charge. He was prime minister, but he wasn't direct man. He wasn't the man who... Unique special operation. That's why you can't pick this stuff up one day, put it down the net. So you also can't pick it up right now and expect to know what's going on. You got to know a little bit of history. But you got to know the right history. You got to know the right laws. You got to know exactly. And God gave me the ability to siphon through all the stuff you don't need to know and take you to the stuff you need to know. And you're in control of your emotions. You're in control of what you allow your emotions to do. You're in control of that. You can know exactly what I know if you'll study what I know. And stop listening to other people. There's nothing new right now. There's not going to be anything new. The Obama stuff, it's not new. It's new disclosure, but it's not new. The operation set up this. Military operations set up this. Obama going to court was set up by the military operation when it happens. And you would be at peace, and you wouldn't worry about today, you wouldn't worry about tomorrow, you would be fretful, you wouldn't look at this in real time if you read and studied what I know, which is what I've provided for you, which is what my platforms are for. Every video cuts through all the other stuff. You don't have to be a negative person. You don't have to be fretful. You don't have to be worrisome, or whatever the words are that make you negative. Bible says, I didn't give you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. So if you believe in God, you got to believe in everything of God. If you believe in God, you got to believe in all of His Word. Sometimes it ain't fun. Sometimes he does. It'll beat you up for something you did or said or whatever, and you got to go, oh, Lord, forgive me. Well, we're all there. We're all under that booklet. We're all under that command. We're all under that structure. We're all under that. No one's exempt from it. No one's better than anybody. Just like me, just because I'm direct and straightforward, I'm not better than you. I may know more than you, but I'm not better than you. And I get passionate because I care about you. I get upset because I care about you. I get upset because of all the other people who are trying to do what? Clickbait you, lie to you, deceive you. 23-939 is going to open up. That's why I told everybody with the Epstein stuff. Epstein's a tip of the iceberg. Epstein was an actor of his own, but Obama with murder, child trafficking's horrific, and that's being dealt with. We have men and women in tunnels, but mainly men, but special operations. We have military proof of underground wars. It's all there. President Trump's the first to implement the subterranean warfare in a publication, in an all-out strategy. That's there. That's horrific. It's also being dealt with. That's also why one of our NDAAs amped up the monetary value of military trauma and health because of what those soldiers will be seeing in these tunnels. You got to know this stuff, right? It's all there. There's so much to it, but it's all there. But murder, that's exactly what 23-939 is implicating. That's exactly what it's saying. And the question leads on to say that multiple combat generals and multiple senior officials of the executive branch, presidential level, the cabinet, etc., but those levels resounding no, that a president cannot do that. Well, if it's saying a president cannot do that, resounding no, and it's a Supreme Court docket, guess what it's already telling you? Obama was the last president involved with SEAL Team 6, and who is dead because of it? Osama bin Laden. Which also tells you what? That 9/11 was not real. It was also rigged. If Osama bin Laden was murdered, then that means he had no direct connection to what? 9/11. Because if he had committed an act of war, then there would be a reason to do what? Declare a act of war to go get these people. That is what that's telling you. That's what I got blocked over True Social for briefly, because I put up the in-depth. This is what this is going to open up. So all those people who jumped ship over Epstein, you're willing to forfeit everything that President Donald John Trump has done from 2017, well really 2015, the visuals, but 2017 lawfully to present day, you're willing to dump all that because of one little thing that didn't happen on your timeline. It ain't happened yet. And it's all because you don't know laws and orders currently invoked, and this is an operation. This is a parameter. That's why you should put little brackets around it like that. Just treat it like that. It's not going to stop after 47 as far as like the glory and the golden age and all that. The military operation, treat it like that. It's a parameter. You put in a puppet government, you put in a civil affairs puppet government. Biden always wanted to be president. So you put him in and you make everything go to hell under him civilly, right up to the place it looks like it's going to crash, and it does a lot of things. It gets people's attention, it gets people whining, griping, bickering, fussing, but then they do what? You find out, it's like that old saying to find out who your friends are. Well, guess what? We find out who patriots are. We find out who really cares about the government, and you really care about what? Laws and orders. Opinions, drama, and propaganda are not solutions. Laws and orders are solutions. Perspectives are not solutions. Perspectives can lead to solutions. Opinions can lead to solutions. But if you don't have a foundation of a law and an order, you can't have anything until you have that. So putting that in, but it also, the military put a parameter there saying we're not going to let it get this far. This is what we're going to do. While they're cleaning out tunnels, child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and then your drug trafficking out in your seas, in your waters, in your maritime, all the maritime laws, all the things that were invoked during that time, all the P-8 Poseidons, all the people saying, oh, here comes another stupid airplane close. Well, ain't so stupid anymore, are they? Remember all those people? And I kept putting the aircraft up. Why are P-8 Poseidons all over the land? P-8 Poseidons are sniffer planes. They sniff submarines. What are they doing flying all over our rivers and creeks and streams? Oh, Michael Jaco, former Navy SEAL Team Chief, SEAL Team 6, who was in the room with Barack Obama and quote-unquote Biden. But see, they don't teach military laws and orders, so anyone who took an order back then, they're innocent. They're going to be innocent. Guess who's going to be held liable? The quote-unquote leaders who did know what they were doing. All right, so Jaco, we were on a podcast one day, and we were talking about the P-8 Poseidons over rivers, creeks, streams, and swamps. The P-8 Poseidon has the best communication system up in the sky, right, down to the whom? Special operators, Navy SEALs. There's been multiple. I have these filed and documented. Multiple. 22 took off from Jacksonville in one drop. One morning, 22 P-8 Poseidons. In just one takeoff. On one day alone. And I've tracked this stuff. I multitask on this stuff. It's all there. So you let quote-unquote Biden, who always wanted to be quote-unquote president, but he was one of the most corrupt senators in history. He plagiarized. He stole. He's always been corrupt. Go back and watch the Clarence Thomas trial. Look how incompetent he sounds even during that. Watch the Clarence Thomas documentary. He says, to this day, this was on Clarence Thomas's documentary recently. They asked him the question about what, quote-unquote, Biden said at the end of it. He said, to this day, I don't know what the hell he said. You can't even, it's like this paragraph, and it don't even form any kind of common sense, logic, anything. These incompetent idiots were in the swamp all these years. So you let them drive it down to a level. But the parameter shows everybody was taken care of. The parameter by laws and orders in military shows you were okay. So it depends on what side of the aisle you want to be on. What do you want? You still want to follow what you think is real time? Because it's not. But if you want that, you got it all day long. But if you want to know what's going on, it's a unique, strategic, special operation. Laws and orders show that, not opinion. So now, guess how it ties in? What did I quote earlier? So 23-939 all of a sudden ties into what? What did Tulsi Gabbard just drop in the last few days? So you see, Obama was nowhere to be found. He hadn't been posting a whole lot, hadn't been talking about President Trump. Disappeared. The liberals thought he was, he's riding off, and they're happily married, and they're doing this. Disappeared. Now what? He's resurfacing. President Trump, a few weeks ago, all roads lead to Obama. Then he posted a video of Obama standing over the cash pallets that they sent to whom? Iran. All right. All of a sudden, President Trump started. And then I post, 23-939. Bam! They hit me, blocked me for a moment, completely deleted me off of True Social, President Trump's platform. All optics for you. Because of what? What are you seeing now? What are you seeing now? You're seeing what? You're seeing Tulsi Gabbard say, we have enough evidence to what? Prosecute Obama on treasonous conspiracy. Both of those separately are strong. Treason and conspiracy. But treasonous conspiracy, it's all pre-planned. Everything's pre-planned. The whole thing is pre-planned. They drained the swamp. You ain't seen Obama. You ain't seen Bill. You ain't seen Hillary. You ain't seen George. You ain't seen Kerry. You ain't seen Romney. Where are they? Where'd Al Gore go? Where'd all these people go? Where's Hollywood? Where the heck is Hollywood? You remember there used to be a commercial after commercial after commercial, all these new movies and these big actors and actresses? Where did Hollywood go? Where are all these people? And then you got the Gunthers over there, wasting people's time, claiming to be a patriot, claiming to be President Trump, and if Obama's not punished, my God, can't you see there has to be someone who knows the foundation? President Trump just can't go in and delete people's profiles. They have to have a reason, right? At this point, sedition being one. So, there has to be what? A method to the what? Madness. Now, I don't see madness because I don't look at madness. I don't have to when I know what's going on lawfully by the man, the boss, the commander. This is the commander of a wartime situation, a special operation. So all of a sudden, Tulsi Gabbard, here they go. It's starting to unravel. Here it comes. What did President Trump say? Nothing can stop what's coming. He couldn't say that without what? Laws and orders. Nothing can stop what's coming are the laws and the orders. Nothing can stop what's coming right now because they're showing you a judicial reset. The whole 2025, 2021, 2017 to 2021, legislative branch. 2021 to 2025, resetting of the executive branch. 2025 is judge this, judge that, judge this. Appeal court this, Supreme Court that. District court this, Sixth Circuit that. Fourth Circuit this, Ninth Circuit that. This circuit, that circuit, appeals court, district court, judge this, judge block that. Judge did this, judge said that. Judge block this, judge. You go back to 2017 to 2021, it was executive order this, executive order that. Law this, law that. Executive order this, national mercy this, national mercy that. National mercy, national mercy. Quote-unquote Joe continued 8 of 11 national mercies and executive orders by President Trump. The other 3 were things that they were completed. And they weren't completed by quote-unquote Joe, because law will show you that. I'm going to show you this in a minute, again, as I've always done. But now you hear Tulsi Gabbard say about Russiagate. Well, what did Russiagate consist of? Election interference. Well, President Trump was elected president November the 8th, 2016. Took oath January the 20th, 2017. The first election under President Trump would have been November 2018. President Trump signed Executive Order 13848 on September the 12th, 2018, and declared a national emergency for election interference. There's the executive order people love the most when I talk about. Because in that executive order, it has a key line in there. It says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulations in any United States election. Don't say 1, 2, 3, buckle my shoe, 4, 5, 6. It don't say any number. It says in any United States election. So all of a sudden, Tulsi Gabbard just did what? Clarified that line, and she validated that line. It says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome, or, little key word there, little key conjunction, or vote tabulation in any United States election. And who's been telling you this for all this time now? And then also what? Ties into what? Guess what this is going to open up? It's going to open up all the election numbers, the real-time data by whom? The National Guard, the United States military. It's also going to open up what? What happened on January the 6th, which was Congress violating federal law. Not a quote-unquote insurrection. All this open, that 23-939 opens up all of Obama, all of Hillary, all of Bill, all of George W., all of it. And this opens up all of those actions that you saw. So it says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome. So there's your action word, altered. The outcome. Your result. Here's your action. Here's your result. Well, the outcome will mean just the election period. That day. November the 8th, November the 5th, all your days of elections. No foreign power. Well, what did President Trump tell everybody? Our gravest threats are not abroad, they're what? They're within. We've been invaded from within. He said this over and over and over. We've been invaded. So, Executive Order 13848. Now, I'm going to pause there, and then we're going to come back. So we're going to do the 1550 breakdown now. So the National Defense Authorization Act put this in place. So the 1550 was placed in the War Powers Act, even though it was in the National Defense Authorization Act, which means your defense budget, money. All right, for whom? Military. Military what? Operations. Military what? Missions. That's what the defense budget is. But military operations as a whole, also just your basic form of operations, your bases, etc., then their training and everything else. You got to go read a defense budget, see what all it entails. All right. So when you look at the 1550 breakdown, that Title 50, which is War and National Defense, Chapter 33, which is the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973. President Trump, they put Section 1550 in the War Powers Act. Well, that's President Trump beating the deep state with their own what? Limitations. In that clause, it said, in the first 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President is to report to whom? The defense committees of the House and the Senate, the use of military, regular or irregular forces. Or irregular is your special operations, clandestine, covert. There's your special operators right there. Irregular and regular forces. Well, the reason how you know this operation is still going is this. Is none of the executive orders have been revoked by quote-unquote Joe Biden. None of them. No executive order The federalization of the reserve components, 1 million, none of these things have been revoked. So President Trump's a threat to democracy, and he's violating the law, and he's violating the Constitution, and he's a threat to all this other stuff, and he's a dictator and all these things. Well, why didn't they abolish anything? If Joe was real, and if Joe was president, he'd have the same power as every other president. Why didn't they abolish anything? Why didn't they terminate anything? Why did they just... And then 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies required a pen, paper, and president and Congress to do what? Continue them. So he continued 8, all of which are deporting illegal migrants. One of those executive orders. The funding of the Chinese Communist military. Biden had his hands with China for years. That's been proven. President Trump called him a what? A Manchurian candidate. The executive order that is freezing all the assets of those who are funding China, Communist military, the People's Republic of China, that executive order continued. All right. Election interference. Now, that makes a lot of sense. Quote unquote, Joe continuing the very executive order that's going to damn all of his people and him. That makes a lot of sense. All right. The Panama Canal. Remember they call him a dictator for trying to take back the Panama Canal? Well, quote-unquote, Joe continued executive order from July 14, 2020 about the Panama Canal. See, so if you're a liberal, you know how stupid you look? That's where you use the context of stupid. You know how stupid you look for saying all those things about a dictator and a threat to democracy and all this other stuff, that we're not even a democracy, but all this stuff? See how dumb you look? You should be pissed and mad. If you thought this was real, you should be pissed and mad at your people for handing all this back over to President Trump on January the 20th, 2025, with a big red giant bow on it saying, hey, we didn't touch anything. War order's still there. All your order of successions are still in place. We didn't do anything. So the very first 180 days, President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. Still open, still active. Just before that, though, there was a topic on the headline articles out there about President Trump installing, quote-unquote, installing a general just in case law breaks down. You don't install a general, ladies and gentlemen. They're there by what? A chain of command. Rank. They rank up. They promote up. You don't install a general. But there's a little clause in law that shows, like, okay, if there's something happens to the president, et cetera, that someone who's in acting capacity wouldn't be the next order. All right? So if you go look at where a general is, a 4-star general, which is what the general was, Jonhson, that they talked about back then, will be the one who would do what? Be in command of NORAD, which he was the commander of NORAD, but he would be in command of a what? Continuity government. Uh-oh. Well, there's articles all throughout March 2020, before President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components active duty on March 27, 2020, in Executive Order 13912, which invoked Title 10, Section 12302, Title 10, which all of us active duty veterans and reserve components raised our right hand to, your National Guard to your Title 32, but they can be called up under presidential orders, Title 10, Section 12406. All right, they're not exempt from that either because they still serve the grander purpose. All the way back here, March 23rd, just 4 days before that, you had mainstream articles saying this about a general being installed just in case law breaks down. Well, that would be your writ of habeas corpus, which is a suspension clause. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the what? United States Constitution. But Article 1 is not the president. Article 2 is the executive branch, the president. Article 1 is your legislative branch. It's your legislative branch who would suspend the Constitution, which is suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, which is due to what? Invasion or rebellion of public safety. What did President Trump say over and over and over and over again? That this has been an invasion, but our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. So it's an invasion of what? Foreign entities. Well, why was foreign and domestic put in our oath? Why, veterans? All you military industrial complex veterans, where you at? Why was foreign and domestic put in our oath in 1862 by Abraham Lincoln? It wasn't to go to Iraq. It wasn't to go to Afghanistan, Korea, Somalia, Libya, Lebanon, anywhere. It wasn't none of that. It was because it's called the ironclad test oath. It was an extra additive that if you replicated anything that went against our ideologies of our foundation, our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, our Federalist Papers, our Bill of Rights, all written predominantly by James Madison, the father of the Constitution, who drafted the Bill of Rights, all right, who also wrote most of your Federalist Papers with two others, Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, all right, in foreign and domestic. If you replicated anything against that foundation, guess what you were? You were foreign to it. And you were treated as what? An enemy of our foundation, an enemy of the people, an enemy of the military. So when you're under a military law right now, and you're under a military occupation right now, and you're under a military operation right now, guess what that means the United States turf is? A place where you can be tried as a foreign entity if you act like a foreign entity. That's why it pays to know the laws and the orders, especially knowing what's going on right now. President Donald John Trump and what's going on ain't nothing like the swamp. And all of you idiots out there who have said that, you are a disgrace if you call yourself a Republican, conservative, or a quote-unquote patriot. You're not. If you say that President Trump, oh, he's just like them, he's acting like that. You have no clue what's going on right now. President Trump, it was not President Trump, it was the legislative branch who suspends the writ of habeas corpus. But then his laws also are cohesive. And guess who introduced that? Guess who introduced this? Democrats introduced that. Democrats introduced. It was a majority House Democrat. A majority. They didn't try to fight the bill. They didn't try to fight that. That's why you have to know these things. It was a majority House. You have to know these things. So when you go look up, and I'm going to post this on my page later, I found another one. You got to find these things. Some of them have been hidden, all right, on purpose, all right, for a certain reason. Everybody's had a certain classification in the military, but also, you know, they hide some of these things on purpose for a while. They've also made it to where you can't find the Special Operations Command joint publication, a few others, but they've also made it to where you can't find the pocket guide of what I've been talking about the whole time. Now, there's another site you can find it on. It's a government.info, governmentinfo.gov, but I'll post that. But there's some of these things you can't find. But there's a continuity of operations. It's the same thing as a continuity of government. They call it a coup now, continuity of operations. That's why so many people heard coup, and they got coup mixed up with coup, like a coup. Continuity of operations, not a coup, like a coup d'etat. Like a coup d'etat, it's a big coup, like a continuity of operations. There's a continuity of operations official publication. And this is so awesome because all the way in there, there's not another combatant command anywhere in there listed except for one, NORAD. Guess who the general was that they were talking about in March 2020? The general of whom? NORAD. That also validates the continuity of government and continuity of operations because that was March 2020. Then President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components 4 days later. All right. Then April 30th, 2020, he directed an equal authority to the Secretary of Defense, all right, to be able to federalize selected reserves. Then you fast forward, so it had been 7 months after that general comment, NORAD, and continuity of operations. 7 months later, President Trump signs Executive Order 13961, which is the invocation of the continuity of government. Federal Mission Resilience Strategy is what they call it. 3 days later, the most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense to July 20th, 2025. So from December the 10th, 2020 to July 20th, 2025, right now, the most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense is Executive Order 13963 from President Trump. So when you hear people out there, they say, well, that's 5 years ago. What? Doesn't matter. Laws work this way. Until they're revoked, or rescinded or terminated, they're active. Every president has had an order of succession within the Department of Defense except for whom? Quote unquote Joe Biden. Every president has had an order of succession within what? The military domains. All of them, except for whom? Quote unquote Joe Biden. He had an order of succession with the Department of Agriculture and a few others. Well, guess what those are? Civil affairs. Guess what that outlines? Puppet government. Guess who's in control of puppet government? Military. But they made certain things happen with quote-unquote Joe as a puppet government, as a fake, as a foe, the dash. They made certain things happen to do what? Reset what? The demand and the visuals, but also the what? Roles, duties, and responsibilities of whom? The president, the vice president, the cabinet. See how this works? See all the people who got mad and upset, now they know what to look for. And if they let what? If they let a quote-unquote president get away with certain things in the future that they were mad about way back here, what are they? A clown and a coward and a what? Hypocrite. So when all the people ask, why would it happen this way? Why? All that negativity didn't do anything for anybody, did it? And you could have known this whole time, because I've been breaking this down and breaking it down, and I always find a new way. I try to find a new way to break it down to you. Say, all right, well, maybe if I say it this way, it'll click. And it always does with someone new. I'll always get multiple messages and emails going, oh my gosh, it finally clicked. That's why you don't give up on people. NORAD. Quote-unquote Joe never had a military domain order of succession. That more than proves everything. I also posted this week, it's one of my most popular posts. It got the most shares so far, a lot of them, recently. But the National Security Memorandum. National Security. Every president has had a National Security Memorandum. Every president, though, has had a different title for them. They called them something different. Therefore, they wouldn't what? In history, get them mixed up. When you went and you either wrote a book about it, whatever it is, you couldn't get them mixed up. You go, oh, NSMs, oh, NSPMs, oh, PPDs, oh, MPP. They're always different with every president. The only two that weren't different was for a reason. Kennedy and Johnson were the same because of what happened with Kennedy. And quote-unquote Johnson, anyway, I won't say anything. But that evil stuff, right, they just continued. Every other president outside of Kennedy and Johnson and Nixon and Ford, they started with number one and it went to whatever. Every president started at number one except for Kennedy and Johnson and Nixon and Ford. Ford, when Nixon was wrongfully impeached for all that crap, which he should be exonerated for as well, when he was wrongfully impeached, Ford's numbers didn't start at number one. Those are the only two presidents. Every other president after Ford starts with number one. And it has a new title and a number one starting. And it'll be that title 1, 2, 3, 4, down. President Trump, it's so cool. His first one is NSPMD. NSPM, yeah. So NSPM, that's it. NSPM, not NSPMD. I was thinking of directives. NSPMs. It's his first, right? What people thought is first. So let's do this way. 45. NSPMs. Quote-unquote Joes were NSMs in the middle. And then President Trump now are NSPMs again. Well, if every other president has had new names, and if quote-unquote Joe was really president, even though President Trump would be here again, you would still want to separate that from his what? His first. Versus looking like a what? Continuity. Then, you go look at January 28th, NSPM2, which is your National Security Memorandum, NSPM2 on January 28, 2017. So in this, 45, order of succession. Skip over 47, February the 4th, 2025. There's a NSPM-2. Click on it. There's only 4 so far under this, under 47. There's only 4 NSPMs. Click on number 2, order of succession within the National Security Council. Go back to quote-unquote Joe in 2021. Click on NSM-2. No order of succession. Every president, and I provided the links where you can click on it, direct to it. Every president has had an order of succession within the national security, except for quote-unquote Joe Biden. Now I'm going to read this here. This is going to break down this a little bit, and I'll try to wrap it up here. But Title 22, Chapter 93. All right. If you go to that on Google, you just type in Title 22, Chapter 93, enter. You scroll down about midway. It'll be right up under Section 8604. All right. And you'll read an executive document there. And I'm going to read it for you, break it down. Executive documents. It says delegation of certain functions under Section 6 of Public Law 112-150. Memorandum, and they all read this way. So I'm going to show you where they always read, and then I'm going to show you where they become a direct command of the President. They always read this way. Memorandum of President of the United States. It says of President, not the President, of President. So it's just a generic statement. Memorandum for the, here's your command, Secretary of State. Okay, well, this was in 2012, I believe. 2012. All right. Well, guess who would have been Secretary of State? Hillary. Well, this is Barack Obama entry in Title 22, Chapter 93, which is Foreign Relations. It says this. By the authority vested in me as President, not the President, as President, they all say this, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title 3. So up to that point, they all say that. I hereby delegate to you, he's talking to the Secretary of State, to you all of the functions conferred upon the President, by subsections A and B of Section 6 of Public Law 112-150, you, Secretary of State, you will exercise these functions in coordination with the Secretary of Defense, Barack Obama. Well, it told you it's a memorandum for the Secretary of State, which would have been Hillary. And I hereby delegate you. So that's Obama saying in first person form, I delegate you, Secretary of State, the functions of, well, Public Law 112-150 was Barack Obama before then. Now let's go to Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, which is President Trump, right? And the orders, federalizing the 1 million reserve components, direct orders to the Secretary of Defense. I mean, everything's still open under that to this day. So that entry, to this day, every executive order is under that. Every federalization of reserves and National Guard under this. Because it hasn't been closed. They haven't been revoked. They haven't been rescinded. They haven't been terminated. So it's still open. And I've broken this down before, but I'm saying it new ways to try to help people. Scroll to the bottom of it, executive documents. Memorandum of President of the United States, July 19, 2021. So this would have been roughly 6 months after, quote-unquote, Joe, right? Quote-unquote, Joe. Not even 6 months. Would have been right at, well, yeah, 6 and a half, if you want to say it like that. It was just yesterday Would have been 4 years ago. It says Memorandum of President of the United States, July 19, 2021. Memorandum for whom? The Secretary of Defense. By the authority vested in me as President, not the President, as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, including Section 301 and Title 3 United States Code. Now that's always done that way. Now here comes the quote-unquote command. I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President by Section 1285A through E of Public Law 116-92 on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Well, the President of 1550 is Donald John Trump. This would have been quote-unquote Joe relinquishing all authority, all presidential authority, but especially all Commander-in-Chief to the whom? Secretary of Defense. Who is the Secretary of Defense directly under in military? The President. All right. Well, the President must be dead and deceased in order for what? In order of succession to take over, where the Secretary of Defense would have full control and full authority. Is President Trump deceased? I don't think so. So this is to the Secretary of Defense who was already under what? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, in which President Donald John Trump invoked all these unique laws and orders that set up a what? A continuity government and a military occupation, military operation, government in exile, puppet government, by laws and orders. So even if you wanted to be that honorary, pain in the rear end person who just can't grasp military special operations, and you want to say that quote unquote Joe is real and he was real and oh you're all this and that, this is him relinquishing all authority. So however you want to split your hair, it still goes back to President Donald John Trump. But because there's unique laws, unique strategies, unique tactics, all lawful, all military laws especially, and highly parafederal, you can't deny that. Now you can deny it ignorantly, but you can't deny it intelligently. You have to believe in a foundation. Our whole nation, the whole reason why you and I are right here, is because of our founders and what they established. They established legislation. They established the three branches of government. They established this process. They established laws and orders. They established this. That's why liberals, when they quote the Constitution, they don't quote from it. They just say the word Constitution. That's not what you want to use. Because Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2, that's the writ of habeas corpus, but the Congress does that, not the President. So Congress is who suspended the suspension clause. That's what it's called, the suspension clause. The writ of habeas corpus, rebellion or invasion of public safety. And laws show that happened, and NORAD, the general of NORAD, was the general that was all in the mainstream articles in 2020. Well, NORAD's the only combatant command that's in the continuity of operations mentioned. It's a very strategic because of U.S. and Canada. So the Title 22 and Title 50, the entries by Obama and quote-unquote Joe, they show you that quote-unquote Joe was not real by law. All right, recently, just within a day or so, a Special Operations Army retired colonel, full-bird colonel, just put out a memorandum. He put out a memo about terrorists amping up their strikes on whom? People who have fought in Iraq, served during Iraq, served during the military during Iraq and Afghanistan, at any capacity, amping the increase of the attacks up. All right? Well, Army Special Operations. What are the odds that Special Operations popping up? What are the odds that everything about assassinations, government in exile, puppet government, all these things are in our Special Operations Command booklet? What are the odds of that? All of it. 23-939. that Supreme Court docket, what are the odds that Executive Order 12333 are referencing it, the assassination executive order? What are the odds that it's in the Special Operations Command pocket guide? Unconventional warfare. Executive Order 12333. I mean, you can't make this up. So they're increasing certain things. Obama's resurfacing. Everything's growing. Everything's building. Snowball's headed for what? Hell. It ain't always a bad thing because the snowball melts. Well, that's what liberals are doing. They're having a meltdown right now. Central casting. President Trump, though, told you it's central casting. So you have two sides to choose from. Like I said earlier, you have two choices. You either got to believe in unique laws, orders, etc., special operations, military laws, federal laws, but strategic, but also different, separated from the swamp, because laws and orders show that. Or if you think Joe was real and executive orders just because they're on the Federal Register and all that, that you either believe that or this. Because that being on the Federal Register, the executive orders and proclamations and all that, that is a result of a puppet government when you have laws and orders that outline that a puppet government's taking place. And special operations, tactics, government in exile, military occupation, occupied country. President Trump's told you over and over and over again in speeches from 2021 to 2024, he said we're an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. All right. He said, I gave Angela Merkel. Everybody's forgot about her. He even said that then. In 2022, he said, everybody's forgot about Angela. I gave her the white flag of surrender. In the Law of War Manual, it's called the white flag of truce. Truce negotiations. It's a negotiation tactic. All right. Capitulations. Puppet governments. So, February the 18th, 2025, a reporter asked President Trump, just one incident. This has happened all over the mainstream articles. Capitulation, 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 capitulation. Nowhere in history has any mainstream article ever used the term capitulation, especially as much as they have in the last 4 and 5 years. It's all optics for everybody. President Trump says central casting with people, and then you have all this with his verbiage at his speeches. In one reporter, February 18, 2025, in a double sequence, asked President Trump about capitulations and puppet governments in Russia. Do you think most journalists know what's going on lawfully? If let's just hypothetically say the journalists right now are the same minds that we've had in the past. Do you think they know what I know? I don't think so. So that reporter was asked and told, but said, hey, you want to be the one that asks it? You'll go down in history. You may not be a visual, but you'll be the one you can say, that was my voice who asked President Trump about it. She asked about capitulations and a puppet government in Russia. I'm the only person. I don't like being called a podcaster because I'm not. I'm a veteran, keeping my oath, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But God gave me a platform. But I'm the only person who's talked about puppet governments. Thank you to my grandfather. Thank you for his service, and thank you for his attention to detail and his love and passion for our nation. Puppet governments. She asked about a capitulation and a puppet government in Russia, of all places. All these terms are not government terms. They're Law War Manual terms. They're not government terms. They're Law War Manual. Occupied country, which is occupied territory, and puppet governments are in the same chapter. Capitulation and white flag of truce are in the same chapter. But occupied country and puppet governments are in the same chapter. Guess what chapter that is? Military occupation, which would be a military operation. You can't make this stuff up. So you have two choices. You have those two. But then you have to say, okay, either President Trump and quote-unquote Joe are the greatest presidents of all time, because laws and orders, if you say that, well, there's executive orders over here and proclamations and all this stuff on the Federal Register with Joe Biden's name on it, blah, 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 blah. And even if you're one of those who said that Obama was pulling the strings back there, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if the whole gang of Democrats were doing it. It wouldn't matter, because Joe's always been tied to them, so they're all tied together. Hillary, Bill, Obama, Bush, Kerry, Romney, they're all in that game, that swamp. All of them. Paul Ryan, all of them. President Trump said they're all rhinos. They're all in it together. Either they're all in. So you either have to believe that President Trump is 100% the greatest president of all time, and quote-unquote Joe the greatest president of all time because of saying laws and orders. That's what they do. And that's how. You either believe they're the greatest of all time together, or you have to believe in a separation. And if you believe in a separation, which you should, but President Trump is a supreme commander, wartime president, in a unique strategic special operation. Laws and orders show that. If people would go read those laws and orders and apply what I've taught and what are in my books, which is what I'm known for, and that's my intellectual property, you know, you can go read and study it the way you want to, but this is how it's rolling, and I've been accurate all along the way. I'm ahead of President Trump with this stuff, not ahead of him lawfully from the standpoint and also attitude and all that, but the books, because I know the laws and orders. Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, who's on the shows with me all the time, he forwarded the books. Special operations. He said special operations are always 2 and 3 years ahead of everybody. Right? I'm ahead. We're ahead because we know the laws and orders invoked and what they mean and what they outline and what they exemplify and whatever word you want to apply. So you got to either believe that President Trump and quote-unquote Joe and the whole thing is all together, or, as you should, it's unique, strategic, special operations. President Trump tells you it's central casting. He was in England not long ago. He was talking about the king and the queen. Oh, the great people, they're central casting. Like the central casting. That means background actors. They're all actresses. All right, where's Obama? Where's Hillary? Where's Bill? Outside of what you think you see on quote-unquote social media, Obama has made 4 posts in the month of July so far. 4. He hasn't made one in 10 days to this point, the last I checked before I got on here. Michelle, Big Mike, hadn't made a post since June 19th. Where are they? If you were being talked about, and a lot of you do, hell had no fury if someone talk about you. Boy, you're going to be blowing it up. Well, wouldn't you think that one of the former presidents being talked about like he's being talked, you don't think if he had free reign and free roam to anywhere to go and social media, don't you think he'd be posting something? Where is he? I know where they are. And by laws and orders, I know where they are. President Trump's told you. All the people, President Trump didn't mean to put that up. The man who used social media. The man who used social media in politics and government. The one who made it cool to use social media. All of a sudden puts a post up that, Joe Biden's been executed. He didn't mean to do that. He didn't see that down there. And this other stuff. And then others over there, he's an ultimate troll. Ha, 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 ha. It's a bait and switch. You got to listen to the commander. All this Obama stuff, he baited you up back here. Showed you that, this is what's coming. This is the next topic up. It's coming. It's coming. Then I get blocked and banned for putting up the big can of worms, the 23-939. But I got back on, red check. That's an optic for you. Well, what's coming? Ahead of everything. Boom. All of a sudden, here we are. All the stuff's unveiling on Obama. And this is light. Very light stuff. Executive Order 13848. Executive Order 13848. Way back here, September the 12th, 2018. Invoked the national emergency. All right. Now, all of it's coming. 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. NationalGuard.mil tells you the National Guard have been federalized. They've been called to federal duty out to the polls. Title 18, there's that Title 18 again. Title 18, Section 592. Title 18 now, federal law, federal crimes and criminal procedures. Title 18, Section 592. Military cannot be at the polls unless on what? Official duty to what? Repel armed enemies of the United States. Armed enemies. And the military is telling you, the first time in history, you can go back and Google this, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024, the National Guard are at the polls all across this nation. Who was the president again? But then you think of 2022, you think, oh, quote unquote, Joe was president too. Well, do you not see the cohesiveness? 2018, 2020, 2020. Where was the order put in place? Executive Order 13912, which was 2020. Well, it wasn't that one, so that tells you it was already a military operation before then. Because this executive order was put into place what? 2018. And I've told everybody, I can make a case that the military was in control starting 2016 by military laws, military orders. All you got to do is go there to the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. Scroll up above, it's on page 10, and it tells you whether the United States government does a certain thing or not, military can act. And the Military Justice Act of 2016, which was a more liberal-based justice, separated military law from federal law. Clarify that. So if you don't believe in the military, you can't believe in this nation, because this nation was founded in the middle of a war by a military. So the best is yet to come. Best is a chess move. You don't always want to beat your opponent outright. You set up a trap and you bait them and you funnel them like that. You funnel them to a wall and you make them tell on themselves the whole way. You draw a line in the sand and say, come across this line. We caught you, we got you, come across this line. Do what's right by the people. Come across. They took certain players out and they played this little plea deal. All right, but then that's special operations. It's hard for people to comprehend that, what a plea deal would look like at that capacity. But they made these people tell on themselves. They trapped them, and they've made them damn themselves, hang themselves, and tell on themselves. And a lot of you know that sometimes it's better not to tell on someone. He didn't want to be Tattletale Trump, so he's what? Commander Trump. He's not a snitch, nothing like that. They trapped these people lawfully, strategically, and tactically, with every law known to man that's lawful. All right. You ain't heard any of them throughout the last 10 years say it was unlawful. They'll say stuff like democracy, which we're not a democracy. They'll say stuff like violating the Constitution, not violating the Constitution. They never talked about the individual laws themselves, because they knew. Very key. Bait and switch, chess. Now, it's not a lifetime chess. You'll see people out there saying, oh, the stage is set and all this stuff about, oh, it's like the deep state did it. No. It's a special operation, unique operation, strategic operation. All this was set back here. There's not any lifetime right now doing that. That's where you have to get into military operations, special operations, strategic operations, tactics, along with the laws. None of what you're watching right now is, oh, the good guys did this, and then the deep state did that. And the good. Stop with the nonsense. A lot of that's clickbait, and it's wanting you to react, and then, don't do that. You don't have to do that. No one has to do that at this point. Period. Influencers or people. You don't have to do that. This whole thing is under control, man. Where you got to get involved is knowing what you need to know as a civilian, the laws, the orders, and then what the future is going to look like. You still need to be involved and active with that, but not involved and active going, oh, yeah, Obama, that piece of dirt. Stop all that. That's not the future. The future is educating our kids and the college kids on how this nation functions and operates. getting away from drama and propaganda and all that clickbait bullcrap. We got to get away from that. That's how you drain the swamp. You got to leave the swamp behind. You don't have journalists who replicate the swamp. And all these people who think they're quote-unquote investigative journalists. On what? You don't even know the laws and orders. You're doing what? You're getting what you can off of Google. That's it. You're not in official capacity. Same thing with Q. Q said about digital soldiers. That didn't mean every Tom, Dick, and Harry who can get on the internet. They're talking about secret military, of which was talked about back in 2017, that there are 60,000 secret military. It didn't mean that everybody all of a sudden, because you can read a little bit and chew on something, that you're a digital soldier. It doesn't work like that. Everything has a law, everything has an order, everything has a precedence, everything has a principle, everything has a foundation and integrity of it. And you're only taking away from the people who actually are. Got to be careful out there, man. There's people out there that they think they truly are at official capacity because they're an investigative journalist and all this stuff. No, it doesn't work like that. That's why I come across as a pompous ass sometimes, but I'm trying to tell you, that's not how the military operates. That's not how even the government, the good portion of the government, when it's cleaned out and it's back to a small level, that's not either that. No, it's not how it operates. You got to quit following certain people. Boy, there's a lot of slip tones out there. Woo! A lot of them. All roads lead to Obama. You don't want to follow people who replicate it. Law of War Manual. Be great to read. Go over there, read the humanitarian part of the Law of War Manual. All right? Go read the humanitarian. Read the whole thing, but read the humanitarian side. Look at something recently. I'm going to give you two things. Look at the run for mayor of New York. President Trump told you, he said, we won't allow this to happen. Well, that's the foreign and domestic we're talking about. A foreign entity that looks like a foreign entity. Now, the people in New York, they're going through this because most of the people in New York, not all, but a lot, are still what? Sleepy. They're still got their heads so far off their rear end they can peep out like a hoot owl out their mouths. All right? That's what, so they're having to go through and see who's involved. Who's going to do what? Stand. Rise up, say, we're not voting for this Muslim piece of trash. He goes against all of our values in the United States. So that's what you're watching. But President Trump's already told you, we won't allow this to happen. That's not going to happen. We will stand, but that's military speaking. The only way President Trump can say that lawfully is militarily. Because that would also be an infringement in another right of freedom of expression. But when you look like a foreign entity, again, that's your ironclad test oath of 1862. That's what foreign and domestic was added to the oath for in the first place. If you look like a foreign entity, but especially when we're under a what? Law, military law. That's how President Trump can say that. That is exactly how President Trump can say that, lawfully. And then naturally, again, your military domains. Everything's proven by simply knowing the laws and the orders. Now, when you first hear it, if you're brand new, you first hear something, you're like, oh man, that sounds like, it sounds old fogey, it sounds conspiracy, it sounds this. Just like the cup that was specially made for me. Military laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. And the guy who creates these, it's a great company, all right, out of Nashville, Tennessee, but again, Patriot. He'll verify that it was made specifically for me, so I'm sure people want one made, but that's fine. He needs a business, all right? But he'll verify he made this for me first. They're not. Anybody who says all this is a conspiracy, military laws and orders and federal are not conspiracy theories. You don't have to like them. You don't have to like President Trump. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like a patriot. You don't have to like a Republican, conservative who knows what's going on. You don't have to like anything. But this is what's currently invoked in laws and orders. This is what they mean. That's why God put certain people in your life, in your place for a reason. But you also control what's in your life that's creating negativity, creating doubt, creating confusion, creating chaos, creating anger, creating frustration. Again, everything I show you leads to a receipt, .gov.mil, of our official capacity of military laws, regulations, military operations, military strategies, military tactics, how they tie in with federal, and then the visualizations that you can see along the way. It shouldn't create negativity if you're a patriot and God-fearing and God-loving person and loving our nation. If you love this nation by its foundation, none of it does that. So if someone's creating fear and chaos and confusion and frustration and anger and sadness and weariness and all the other terms you can apply, anything negative in your life, they have no clue what's going on right now lawfully. You don't need them in your life, and they also don't need a platform. They don't need a platform. They're not being called by God, one, and they're also not being put at official capacity at any capacity. All right? They're not. That's why I've turned down multiple shows. I've turned down multiple people. I've turned down so many things. If you only knew what I've been hit with and the money that I've been bribed with and stuff in the past for the last 3 years, if you only knew what my team and I have been through, you would know you could fully support, but fully trust me. Consistency is the key. And the only way you can know someone's consistent is to read what they're putting out, to read it. But if all they're doing is just blabbing their lips, and that's all they're doing, opinion-based, drama-based propaganda, and they don't lead you to any kind of anything, but then there's ones out there who steal it and make it look like theirs. But, so there's a bunch of variables here. But if they're just blabbing off at the mouth and they're creating confusion and negativity and frustration, that ain't of God in the first place. But it also ain't military, and also is not even federal for that level. And I don't believe in a big federal government. I love what's going on because it's dropping everything down to a level that people can comprehend and be a part of. But again, we have to have a government because of where we are. Look at our population. Look at what we've grown to. Look at all the infrastructures, and look at all the companies and organizations, and look at everything. Got to have it. We got to have someone and people who know what's going on lawfully. So, military laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. And what's going on right now is not. And let me tell you another thing. The people who have done that or try to trash me and all that stuff, they've never once debunked one thing, because you can't. That's not how laws and orders work. They're there for a reason. They were passed for a reason. And that's also why the deep state are doomed, and were doomed from the start, because every law has been on the books for many years. That's what's funny about it. Is President Trump, if this was a real time, all President Trump would have to say is, well, you left it on the law books. You left it here. You left it here for me to enforce. Oh, that's your fault. Thank you. So that's why when you flip the equation and you know that quote-unquote Joe continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies and what they're all doing, when you know there's been no order of succession by quote-unquote Joe in any military domain, all right, if you know all those things, you would know that you're watching history repeat itself. Good history. Draining the swamp, baby. Nothing can stop what's coming. The best is yet to come. And all the iceberg is being tipped right now. Obama's resurfacing. Nothing can stop what's coming. All right, there's a storm coming. Wait for it. So you need to get back to a capacity. People need to get back, your friends and your family need to get back to a capacity of respecting the military, the whole military, all of the military. And stop focusing on the ones who don't know what's going on and focus on the ones who do know what's going on, lawfully. All right? But a lot of the negativity creates negativity for others, and it also does what? Deviates and makes people go, oh, this guy in the comment box said he's veteran of 30 years, and this is bullcrap. It don't matter how long you serve, what your rank is, what your DD-214 looks like, none of that. If you don't know current laws and orders, and you can't repeat it like I can especially, you can be lost as a jaybird, just like you look like a penguin in Jamaica. It doesn't matter. So right now, everybody should be excited. If you're a patriot, get excited. Like, you ain't even to the best part. You ain't even to the exoneration part. You ain't even to that yet. Let it play out. But because there's so much information, you have plenty of time to read and study and comprehend all of what's taking place back here, right? That led to this moment. And then you'll appreciate it even more. And you'll love it even more. And guess what? I love him. People say, right, I've asked people, oh, why do you love him so much? Why do you defend? Because my dad is 4 years older than President Trump. That generation built this nation. Their mindsets built this nation. If you think of this, one great example, and I'm going to get off here, I got to go, but if you think of one great example, and I'm going to show it to you. I've driven this country over and over and over again. I've driven all over this country. I've driven all over the West, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, Nevada, I call it Nevada, but California. I've driven all over the big open spaces. Nebraska, Kansas, all through there. I've driven it multiple times. Multiple times. If you look at every single railroad tie that has been laid by a man, every single railroad tie had to be laid in precision, accuracy. They're all around mountains out there, valleys, they go through tunnels, you name it. Every single railroad tie in hot and stupid cold weather, and even mediocre weather, every single railroad tie. Think about the work, the sweat, the blood, the thorn, everything, their hands, their gloves, if they didn't have gloves. Think of every single railroad tie that's been laid in this country. Think of it. Look at those trains across the plains out there. You can watch trains that look like 5 miles long. Some man and his labor laid those down for those trains to cross. That's just one aspect of this nation. One aspect. It didn't get done on its own. Those tracks didn't lay down themselves. Some person in hot, rainy, snow, heat, cold, freezing cold, Arctic temperature, someone had to lay that down. Men like my dad and my grandfathers who built this right down the road where I am. My grandfather carved out the road in 1929 when he was 16 years old. Carved out the road before it was even a dirt road, before it even became a paved road. Men, women, but the women were in a different capacity in those time periods, and that's okay, but men who built this nation, who carved out this nation, every aspect of it. My grandfather worked for the Department of Agriculture himself. I mean, you talk about farmers and all the different things. Look at the men who built this nation. This man has that same attitude. My dad is up every morning like clockwork. He don't need an alarm clock. My dad's up every morning. He's always got something to do. He's always about to be 83 years old. Every one of my great uncles, I got one still living, almost 90. All of my great uncles, they lived to be 90-something, 90. They were still getting on their tractors in their 90s. It's a mindset. And we got to get back to that. We got to get back to integrity. We got to get back to doing what's right on the front. We got to get back to doing what's right, defending what's right, versus just defending someone because you think you like them. They may be the very ones who's tricking you and conning you. And normally the ones who say all the key words, magic words, and all the words that are lovey-dovey, those are the ones tricking you. And there's a way to train yourself, skill set, to see if Derek Johnson's telling you the truth or is it hogwash. There's a way to do that. It's consistency for one and what I've been giving you. And I've been giving you the whole everything. I never clickbait you. Never show you just an excerpt here. I never go, what do you think about this? My posts are always long. They always have to make you do what? Study, research, think. Study, research, think. And then you have to do what? Make it applicable. And it only does what? Sharpens your skills. It only sharpens your brain. It only sharpens your everything. Whatever it could be. That's what we got to get back to. So you want to drain your swamp too. So know how the computer works. Know how apps work. Know how these social media platforms work. Unfollow the people. Don't add to it. Unfollow them. Now if someone gives you a command, say, hey, go over here and bomb these people and tell them what's up, then, but most of these people, these platforms, they're no good. They're drama-based, propaganda-based, surface level. They don't lead to solutions, which are laws and orders. They don't need to be leading right now. We're in a military operation. And because we're in a military operation, that's why veterans like me are passionate. And I'm going to flick off the ones that show you that don't need to be there and say, hey, this is all you need to know. Nothing's new right now. You're not going to discover anybody new. No one new. They're either regurgitating or they got an ulterior motive. Nothing's new right now. It's all in laws and orders. Way back here. The resetting in the legislative branch. What you watched with the 2021-2025, the puppet government, the quote-unquote, it was a quote-unquote Joe with his funeral, the 3 cannons, Army regulations. No one saw all that except for Army veterans that day, and the Army veterans who knew what was going on, all right, with regulations. That's why I'm one of the few out there. I don't know any, I've never met anybody else who saw it that day. So, like the commission officers that weren't present at the cannons, that's Army Regulations 600-25, 2-3 cannon salutes, all that. So, you know, that's why I am passionate. And I care about people because I know how to be tough when to be tough, compassionate when to be compassionate, but I'm passionate as well. And I get mad and upset when I see people misleading people. We don't need people misled right now. We are the place, there's enough laws and orders with the unique operation. No one should be misled right now if they're hungry and they want to know. So everybody needs to stay in their lane. There's a difference in sharing information, and there's a difference in stealing information. There's a difference in showing people, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, here's the guy who did it. Here's the guy who said it. Here's the guy who did this. There's a difference. Staying in your lane, being at your capacity. But because it's a military operation, that's why it's a different category right now. As long as law shows we're in a continuity government, we're in a military occupation. And President Trump's told you that. So it requires certain people who know that. All right, that knows how to lead you through it, and where you don't get scared, you don't get weary, you also don't get in a weak moment and do something that can alter your life. There's a lot of people out there still in those moments. They have weak moments. We don't want that. So if you care and love about people, you'll know what I'm talking about. We don't even want to put that out there, negativity out there. But there are people who find weak moments, and they find a moment they can't come back from, and they do something. All right, we don't want that. This is a military operation. Laws show that. You got to know the laws and orders. So, we'll see you guys soon.